My team, I would be very careful about slinging stone. Am I going to get sued?
You got legal on this?
I like football season, and all the things that go with
it. Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on a Monday morning recapping all things Week 13 in the NFL.
True.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Live, 7 a.m., just us and Good Morning Football. Talking ball right now on a Monday morning, so let's get into it.
All right.
You ready to go? All right. Let's start. We always talk Thursday Night Football now. You made me do that. So, days ago, the Buffalo Bills beat the New England Patriots 24-10.
It happened.
Bills moved to 9-3. Patriots fall to 6-6. We did discuss this game a little bit on the PFF NFL Daily on Friday morning. If you want more of an in-depth breakdown, but the gist of this was the Bills are better, and continue to prove it in the AFC East.
Yes, Bills are better. Better team won pretty comfortably, but the looming specter again of Josh Allen turnovers, or at least turnover-worthy plays. Josh Allen continues to pitch the ball to the defense quite a lot. And all of a sudden, the Bills are in the number one seed now, having other results on Sunday. Buffalo jumps back into being the number one seed in the AFC. But, man, if we're judging this team, they're on a different curve to most other teams, right? You're not talking about, is Buffalo good? Are they making the playoffs? Blah, blah, blah. Buffalo is being judged against, can this team win a Super Bowl?
Is this the year? Right. That's their
Can they get past
standard.
Everybody else in the AFC, win a Super Bowl championship? And the answer is probably not if he keeps throwing the ball to the defense multiple times a game. As impressive and as important as all the Josh Allen big plays are and the positives he's bringing to the table, you can't do that.
So, yeah, a couple passes that he got away with. He got strip sacked on David Quessenberry filling in at left tackle, injured, mind you, got whooped, and then that part wasn't on him. The actual fumble, was on him. That almost turned the game to give the Patriots some life. But the Bills, it was really a dominant effort by their receivers as far as them getting open. Stephon Diggs, even though the stat line, only 7 catches for 92 yards, but any time the Bills needed a conversion and they wanted to hit Stephon Diggs, he was open against the Joneses. Jonathan and
Jack.
Marcus, the receiver.
The Diggs performance is almost better viewed through the lens of the grades of the Joneses. You look at Jack Jones, Jonathan Jones, each of whom have been doing an incredibly good job over the course of the year. Generally, they just got beat when they had to play Stephon Diggs anytime he needed to play. And that's anytime they wanted it. And then, as you said, Marcus Jones, little punt return specialist / defensive back, nickel corner. Yeah, let's throw him out there on offense, see what happens.
Yeah, so Marcus Jones, the rookie nickel, as you mentioned, 51 receiving yards, including a 48-yard bubble screen for a touchdown. And that was it for the Patriots offense. He had 51 of Mac Jones' 195 passing yards.
They basically got nothing on offense except the Marcus Jones trick play that went for a touchdown.
Only play that went above 20 yards, only play that was above 15 yards, and pretty much until garbage time, until they were down 2 down the stretch. So in New England, that's raising questions once again about the offense. How, on one hand, it's if you found a Marcus Jones as this change of pace corner / slot receiver that you can add to a good offense, that's awesome. That's a thing that they do on championship caliber teams. The problem is the rest of the offense isn't good. So it's not as exciting. But yeah, when
it shouldn't be the primary source of offense.
It shouldn't be. It's got me thinking a lot, especially with Shohei Ohtani with the Angels, being a two-way player this year and, being an MVP candidate as a hitter and as a pitcher. I know this isn't a new thing in football, having two-way players, but I've been thinking more about it lately, how you could steal a roster spot and maybe, tap into versatility. I think Marcus Jones has a chance to be that guy that could play defense, return punts, and contribute on offense.
It was impressive to me just how natural he looked at it. And it's only really one play, so whatever, but there are teams that carve out essentially a roster spot for that gimmick player on offense, you know? And if he can do that as a part-time gig whilst primarily being, you know, a part-time player on defense, I guess, and the punt returner, it is like stealing a roster spot. I mean, that's a 5th/6th wide receiver spot that he can take up while actually doing a real job on the side and playing, you know, auxiliary defensive back or being your primary return man. So it is a really useful thing for the Patriots if they want to lean into it.
So impressive win by the Bills. Patriots fall to 6-6, and they're still in last in the AFC East and trying to figure out what's going on with that offense. A lot of people calling for Matt Patricia. I mean, the whole thing's a mess. We thought it could be a mess with Matt Patricia running the offense, and it seems like it's off. Mac Jones was screaming on the sideline. Everybody was making a big deal about that as well, but there's a lot of frustration.
You're also all clearly misreading what he said. He did not say the effing run game sucks.
He said
did not.
Quick game.
100% did not. Now, we can talk about whatever the first sentence was, but that second sentence was absolutely quick game, not run game.
Yeah.
Like, just was. And yet everybody was quoting, you know, was captioning the video with run game sucks. Like, that's not what he said. Just isn't.
So that's that. Bills 24-10. And then, as we said, because of what happened yesterday here in Cincinnati, the Bills right now in line to be the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Quite an achievement. Not even an achievement. Quite a fortuitous breaking of circumstance for them, given, you know, what's happened to them and the losses that they've had, to be able to, like, they don't even need to do anything special now to still get the number 1 seed. It's back in their hands. That's a real useful turn of events for Buffalo.
All right, let's get to Sunday's action. Let's start with
first. Hang on, we're almost 11 minutes into this, and there's only 11 likes in the chat.
Oh yeah, we should have at least more than one per minute.
Right?
Hit that like button. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being with us here on a Monday morning. It's already moving. All right, let's go. Cleveland Browns 27, Houston Texans 14.
That's where you're starting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all right. That's fine.
I want to get this over with.
Okay.
The Browns won. Let's get the Browns game over with here. An ugly game. Deshaun Watson makes his return. He looks absolutely terrible. Mm-hmm. He was rusty. You were right on that he would be rusty. And
how would he not be? 2 years without playing.
No, I get it. I mean, but I thought you'd have enough easy passes in there and all that stuff against the Texans that it would be okay. It was also a game. Was there an offensive touchdown? There wasn't one, right? No, there was
one late, right?
Late? Yeah. So we had a safety in there. We had pick sixes, punt return for a touchdown.
Nico Collins got one for the Texans late on.
Oh, yeah, so one late touchdown. They are the kings of garbage time over there in Houston. So that changes my whole narrative. So we had a 76-yard punt return by Donovan Peoples-Jones in there.
Great punt return. Peoples-Jones, who continues, whether it's special teams or offense, like, only makes spectacular plays. He's your Brandon Lloyd, except worse. Like, you were trying George Pickens being Brandon Lloyd. Peoples-Jones only makes elite plays.
Yeah, but he wins with speed a little bit more. He's more of a speed winner. He's
speed winner. Okay.
Speed winner. Yeah, we got to think of something else. All right, so what are your thoughts on the Browns? The Kyle Allen-led Texans have not moved the ball effectively. And as of now, 2 starts into the Kyle Allen experiment, he has now tied Davis Mills with 8 turnover-worthy plays on the season. Davis Mills, of course, was the starter through 12 weeks.
Yeah.
11 weeks. And Kyle Allen, as you like to say, pitching the ball to the defense.
I mean, you made the point yesterday that, like, if Davis Mills was the quarterback in this game, Houston probably wins. Like, this was a game where
just not turning it over, not making mistakes.
Simply not making a mess of it probably would have had Houston winning this game. Like, at some point, they were 5-0 up, right? And then Peoples-Jones scored the touchdown. Then it's 7-5, and we're working on scoregami games and stuff. That's the kind of game it was. And, like, Cleveland wasn't getting an awful lot done themselves on offense. Houston wasn't either. But it's like if you had a guy that simply was going to pick up a few first downs, wasn't going to turn the ball over, you've probably got a real shot at winning this. And then it was the turnovers that just started causing Cleveland to put touchdowns on the board.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely the turnovers. Cleveland's defense has been better in recent weeks. We always talk about defense being a product of who you play. You played the Texans. You played Kyle Allen. Played the Bucs last week. It played better in the second half. But Cleveland's defense was a train wreck for the first 11 or 12 weeks of the season. They've at least shown signs of life these last couple weeks. But it was all their defense. As far as Deshaun Watson on the field, we had a bad red zone interception, throws it right to Jalen Petrie in the end zone, and he just was missing low. I mean, he was just one-hopping passes left and right.
It was like the anti-Cam Newton.
It was. He was not. He's got to recalibrate the other way. So as of right now, we'll see when it's finalized. Deshaun Watson, 48 passing grade. I did think he looked a little bit better maybe as the game went on, but it was definitely an ugly return.
Yeah, the fascinating thing is going to be how long that lingers, because I don't think it's arguable that yesterday they would have been better with Jacoby Brissett as quarterback.
Yep.
Brissett, by the way, who was coming in as the short yardage quarterback again. That seems to be a thing that they're doing, like the designated 3rd and 1, 4th and 1
That's
quarterback.
what the Dolphins did. The Dolphins did that with him a couple years ago. Yeah.
So that part is kind of interesting. But I don't think it's really questionable that he would have been better for them yesterday than Watson was. So now the question becomes, like, how long does this rust linger? I guess it doesn't really matter. They're out of it essentially, even if they're not mathematically yet, right? But like if it's longer than this week, it's costing them any chance they have.
Well, the thing is, the bottom half of the AFC has become pretty interesting. If you're, the Browns at 5-7 are hashtag in the hunt. But all of the teams that are 6-6, 5-7, now there's a bunch of them. They are kind of battling for that last playoff spot. The trouble is the Jets have the number 7 spot right now at 7-5. Jets have the tiebreaker over the Browns. There's all the tiebreaker.
You got to make up probably 3 games over that bottom seed, which is tough.
So there's now you've got some maybe optimism from Raiders fans, Browns fans, Steelers fans, right, who are all 5-7, but they still have to leapfrog 2 6-6 teams, the Patriots and the Chargers, and then get in over a 7-5 Jets team. But we'll see. I mean, the Jets have the Bills this week, right? Things are changing every single week here, but you pretty much have to win out, or you can only lose once, just to even have an opportunity.
Yeah, I think they absolutely have to win out, and even then, probably doesn't matter.
So, do you have anything else to add to this message? The Texans, Kyle Allen has back-to-back grades well below average. He's grading in the 20s as a passer.
I don't understand the purpose of Kyle Allen, to be honest. The Kyle Allen, whatever the experiment was, has failed.
I don't mind any experiments at this point. If you're the Texans, I don't mind experiments. At this point, though, I just go back to Davis Mills.
Yeah, I at least understand the purpose to giving Davis Mills all the game time humanly possible and seeing if you can coax some more aggression out of his play and find a higher level of a higher ceiling to him going forward. Maybe he can be, a high-end backup or whatever. I can't see anything that says Kyle Allen has a useful future for you as a quarterback, whereas Davis Mills might. I didn't understand benching him in the first place. I don't understand persisting with it now after 2 games of seeing a guy who's even worse. Like, what is worse and more destructive? Like, it's not even, I understand that Davis Mills was limited in terms of the big plays he was offering the offense. If Kyle Allen is bringing those to the table, they're few and far between. And in order to get them, you have a dramatically more self-destructive quarterback in terms of turning the ball over. So it's a massive net loss. Whatever that experiment was, it has failed. It has turned into like a big pile of sooty gunk in the fume cupboard. It's time to toss it out and go with something else.
Don't worry, the Texans have the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Titans over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a rough schedule down in Houston. So, you done on that game?
Yeah.
That's all I got. Where's what I want to talk about here?
Where's what I want?
The PFF NFL podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home? Planning to start a family? No, I got my family. But this is why I need to listen here.
You have a family. 4.
Wondering how to make your money grow? Yes, I am. Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Here's what you're going to do. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. You can get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. And, of course, we thank Western Southern as our keynote sponsor here in the studio, Western Southern Studio.
Keynote sponsor.
Here in Cincinnati.
They literally power the studio. They've got the plaque on the wall, the most impressive and high-end thing in the studio, and all sponsored by them, all powered by them.
Can't put the lights on without Western Southern here. So let's go. Minnesota Vikings 27, New York Jets 22.
Okay.
Now, what do you mean? Okay. Well, you questioning all my game choices here?
No.
Where would you start?
No. Let's go.
Would you start with the tie? Do you want to go to the tie? No. Vikings 27, Jets 22. Another dramatic game for the Vikings. This time, instead of a fourth quarter comeback, it's the Vikings holding on in the fourth quarter. They got up 20-3. The Jets field goaled their way back. Yeah. With 3 other field goals to get to 20-12. 4 more field goals, to get to 20-15. So a lot of people who are mad at coaches for not taking field goals. The Jets took a lot of field goals in this game, and it was not enough, obviously. But they did cut the lead to 27-22, and they get stopped in the red zone to end this game.
This was a really interesting game because the Vikings make no sense whatsoever this season. They gave up 500 yards in this game and still felt like they had the game in control and were kind of letting it get away from them at times. The Vikings are now 4-0 against the AFC East, which, remember, the AFC East is crushing everybody. The whole division is
nobody
above
has
500.
a losing record in the AFC East.
Right. So the AFC East as a division is 30-14 against everybody else and 0-4 against the Vikings. Now, if you also say, well, they've also beat up on each other, they've played each other. You strip out the games against themselves, and the AFC East is 23-9, I think, against everybody else, and 0-4 against the Vikings. And they've all been one-score games, most of which have been like, the Vikings needed some luck to bounce their way in order to get the win. And it's just this season for Minnesota. Kevin Seifert tweeted that the Vikings are now 9-0 in one-score games this season, which is the longest streak ever to begin an NFL season. The previous record was the 2009 Colts, who won their first 8 one-score games that year. And remember, 2009 Colts, that's the playoff team, or the Super Bowl team, right?
Yeah.
Super Bowl losing team, but Super Bowl team. So it's not even like you can look at that and say, well, that's a run of things. Like, that's emblematic of this Vikings team that's not really as good as their record, and eventually that's going to swing back and come back down to earth. Like, it might be the thing that carries them all the way to the Super Bowl. It's just weird. And maybe it's the thing that only lasts until the Super Bowl, and then, next year it comes clattering down to earth. But this is why the Vikings are weird this season, because 9 one-score games usually don't break 9-0. They usually break, 4-5 or whatever.
Our 2023 analysis is already writing itself, right? The Vikings can't keep this up. You can't win all those one-score games. You're going to go, even if you go 6-3 in those one-score games next year, things change. So, hey, they're keeping it going for now. I mean, we always talked about the Vikings as playing up or down to their competition. And then last year it was like, all right, sometimes you hit the field goal, sometimes you miss it, right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. This year, though, they keep finding ways to win in all of these one-score games. In this one, you had Justin Jefferson limited to just 45 yards on 7 catches. He did score late. But the Jets did a nice job limiting the big plays for Justin Jefferson. For the most part, there's one he got his hands to that he easily could have been, a big play. It was I think it was a really good throw by Cousins, good enough throw by Cousins. So they didn't completely limit him, right? I mean, there was an opportunity there, but a lot of Jefferson's catches, even for first downs, were him getting smacked over the middle by safeties and everything. But the Jets did a nice job limiting the Vikings' big plays. Vikings ran the ball pretty well with Dalvin Cook. But as you mentioned, the Vikings' defense, or the Jets' offense, a lot of big plays in there, and maybe even more to be had. Mike White had a couple other opportunities, some big plays to be had there as well. But for the Jets, you're seeing the playmakers. You're seeing Garrett Wilson. You're seeing the great Corey Davis. He had a 31-yard scamper through the middle of the defense in the comeback attempt. You're starting to get the Jets playmakers being a part of this.
I haven't run the numbers, but I need to see what Garrett Wilson's season projection would look like if Zach Wilson wasn't his quarterback for half the year.
8 catches, 162 yards yesterday, including that 60-yarder.
Yeah, 8 catches, 7 of which were first downs. He just looks incredible. Like 5 explosive plays. Garrett Wilson looks like a superstar with anybody other than Zach Wilson throwing him the ball. Like right at the start of the year, it was Joe Flacco. Garrett Wilson looked fantastic, and then his production disappeared when Zach Wilson came in. And then when Mike White comes in, immediately back to being a superstar again and being the thing that kind of carries this offense. And then, again, it's like Mike White played pretty well. Again, sort of showed the baseline of just taking the easy stuff and letting guys like Garrett Wilson make plays. But it also sort of showed the limitations in Mike White. And he had a bad turnover-worthy play. He also had, for some reason, insisting on forcing the ball to Braxton Berrios in the red zone. Like, Garrett Wilson is destroying everything. Corey Davis is making a play. Elijah Moore is out there. Why are we throwing the ball to Braxton Berrios right at the critical moment when you need the guy to make the catch?
The one he didn't catch?
Yeah.
That was a well-schemed play.
But why a well-schemed play for Braxton Berrios? Like, that was what you did a couple of years ago when you didn't have any receivers.
That's not Mike White. They put him in the backfield.
I'm not saying it's Mike
one, right?
White, but I'm saying
that's the Jets.
Why are the Jets designing plays?
He wasn't in the backfield. Sorry, he's in the slot. But
for Braxton Berrios rather than using their good playmakers.
I don't know, man. He just should have caught it.
He should have caught it, but there's a reason. Like, that's like designing a play for Scotty Miller. Like, it's just not a high percentage, thing.
This was interesting at the end of the game, right? So the Vikings are up 27-22, and the Jets have a 4th and 1. They do run the little angle route to Braxton Berrios. Man, White leaves it just enough behind.
Yes,
just enough behind. So that's going to fall incomplete. But the game wasn't over, right? There was only a minute 46 left on that play. Jets had all 3 timeouts. The Vikings ran it 3 times, then had to punt. Jets did get one last opportunity to drive down. The Vikings defense just they held on, right? White had a similar play. There was a ton of plays yesterday where quarterbacks were trying to hit that dig route, the deep in cut over the middle, and safeties were breaking on the ball, right? That was the play where Minkah Fitzpatrick sealed the deal against the Atlanta Falcons. Mike White had a near identical play. Harrison Smith dropped the interception, and then a couple plays later, White throws another interception on 4th and 10 basically to end it. So Vikings defense, man, they did crack down when they needed to, but like you said, I mean, this was like the epitome of bend but don't break.
Yeah.
They gave up the 500 yards, as you said, but they kept forcing field goals, and then they get that big 4th down stop, but multiple 4th down stops at the end of the game to win.
They were timing it up. Like, the Vikings didn't get much pressure in this game at all, which, against the Jets offensive line, you would say is quite a failure. But whatever pressure they did get was all on 3rd and 4th down. Like, that was when they managed to time up, which has kind of been the story of their season. They haven't necessarily been that good across the board. Like, Zadarius Smith is leading the NFL in pressures, and Donnell Hunter is pretty high as well. But there are giant stretches of games where they don't show up at all. But they seem to time it for critical 3rd down where you need a play. Boom, Zadarius Smith wrecks a guard, gets pressure right in the quarterback's face, big play. The Vikings were managing to time. They were giving up, yardage left, right, and center, but then were managing to time the good plays for 3rd down to get off the field and keep going. So they've just been. They're such a fascinating team this year because I don't even think it's as simple as they're performing really well in the unsustainable stuff, therefore they're not as good as their record, therefore they come back down to earth. Because they're winning in a bunch of different ways. It's just every week it's something slightly different and unusual that keeps breaking their way. It's a very odd team.
I honestly think part of it is Kirk Cousins' inconsistency, though, too, because you see him actually just not – it's not a Kirk Cousins season at all, right? It's the old narrative of Cousins being the stat collector and being good in garbage time or being good when the game's in hand or on either side of it, whatever it might be, front runner or whatever it might be. He's actually been far more inconsistent than he's ever been, but more clutch than he's ever been, right? It's been, hey, it's 3rd and long and I got pressure in my face, I'm going to make a big throw. Not every time. I'm just saying there's a lot of 4th quarter performances that are spectacular by Kirk Cousins. A lot of it's his trust with Justin Jefferson, putting the ball up and letting him make plays. Honestly, I think that's a big part of it, right? So the unsustainable that you're talking about at a grand level, 9-0 and 1-score games and bend but don't break defense and all that stuff. But if Cousins just plays better, like he overthrew TJ Hawkinson on a seam route where he's wide open, right? Those types of plays, those are still there. Cousins was hitting those the last couple of years. He wasn't missing as many throws. He wasn't putting the ball in harm's way nearly as much. It's interesting. I think the Vikings could have more definitive wins if he played more complete games, from start to finish. This is more Andrew Luckian this year from Kirk Cousins. It's not, right? It's inconsistency, but when you need him, Cousins is making those big throws. And I think that's a big part of the Vikings playing everybody really, really tight this year.
And their offensive line has been a lot better this year than it's been in seasons past. And even without Christian Darrisaw, still not back from those concussions, like Blake Brandel was fine. Yep. Blake Brandel looks like a decent enough left tackle. Like, obviously he's not as good as Darrisaw. It's a downgrade, but like, for example, the Jets are down to like tackles 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 again. And neither one of them is as good as Blake Brandel appears to be based off a couple of games. So Minnesota's offensive line has not been the problem it's been in previous years. And yet Kirk Cousins isn't actually playing as well as you might have expected him to in Kevin O'Connell's offense, and given Justin Jefferson being crazy.
It's definitely getting interesting in Minnesota because when you look at their schedule, they play at the Lions.
They have the easiest remaining schedule.
Yeah.
In the NFL.
Lions, Colts, Giants, right? Lions are on the upswing. Giants have a good record, but we know they're on the downswing. Colts still have the Packers and Bears as well. I mean, the Vikings could be, you lose one of those, you're 14-3. If you just lose one, 14-3. So the Vikings still very much in the mix for the number 1 seed, even though I think most people feel the best teams in the NFC, Eagles, Cowboys, and the 49ers. Like those are the ones that feel the best, but the Vikings keep winning. So making it interesting there. Jets 7-5, as I mentioned earlier, they're as of right now the number 7 seed in the AFC, holding on a game ahead of the New England Patriots, who they do not have the tiebreaker against, and then the Chargers. All right, let's go to Baltimore. Ravens 10, Broncos 9. Baltimore with a late touchdown, 31 seconds left. Tyler Huntley has to lead the touchdown drive because Lamar Jackson with a knee injury, which limited him to just a handful of snaps. Lamar ends the game just 3 for 4 for 11 yards, got sacked a couple times, and had a 9-yard run. He leaves with a knee injury. Tyler Huntley takes over. The report on Lamar Jackson is days to weeks, so it's not season-ending. But much like Justin Fields, it's day-to-day to
neither is it day-to-day for the next 50-something days.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously huge for the Ravens, though I know we've liked what we've seen from Tyler Huntley throughout the last couple of years as backup.
Yeah. Tyler Huntley leading a 16-play, 91-yard drive for the win. And
yeah. So prior to that, I mean, the Broncos are winning 9-3.
Yes.
Their defense, once again, is fantastic. You've got Justin Simmons with 2 picks. One was a bad one by Tyler Huntley. One was James Prochet with an ill-advised throw into the end zone.
Such an absurd ball to even put in the air. Yeah. Like, it's one of those trick plays.
He did it with confidence, though, man. I'm watching him. I'm like, he must have someone.
Right.
Nope.
But there has to be – it's like some of these throws where you design the trick wide receiver pass or running back pass or whatever. They've just decided, since we've called this, I'm throwing it. There has to be like remember the traffic light system that Rex Ryan had for Mark Sanchez? It's like, if you see this, red light, don't do it, There has to be like a traffic light system for wide receivers or running backs. Like, if you see, for example, the free safety lingering over the top of the guy you want to throw the ball to, do not put it in the air. And yet he did. And Justin Simmons was just sitting there waiting for it.
It's got to be wide open or nothing. But So the Ravens have nothing going on offense. The Broncos drive, though. So the Broncos drive is interesting with about 6:50 left. Russell Wilson hits a big-time throw down the field. Greg Dulcich on an over route, and it's like, all right, the Broncos are going for this not 4-minute drill exactly, but they're trying to run the clock, and one more score basically ends it and the whole deal. And then the Broncos go failed run. There's a miscommunication where Russ throws one, receiver runs something else, and then there's an overthrow. So they go big play, get to midfield, and then it's 3 and out. And then the Broncos, that was with 6-something left, right? That drive started. The Broncos didn't see the ball again until there's about 30 seconds left and down 1. And they got into, a 66-yard field goal? 60-something yard field goal that fell short at the end. But that was, man, that Ravens drive, 16 plays, 91 yards, as you said, to end the game. Pretty impressive.
There were a few field goals yesterday where, and was there one on Thursday as well?
It was Tucker last week. Had the 66-yarder that looked good but fell short.
There's a bunch of those recently where teams have taken a shot from like the moon, and the ball has been dead on line and then dropped like 7 yards short. And you're like, no, actually, it's not even close.
Would have been good from 54.
Right. It's like teams have just decided all of a sudden that their kickers actually have the leg to make absurd kicks, which they do, clearly, because, in warm-ups or whatever, like there's visual evidence of these guys making shots that far, and then they connect in-game, and it's like it looks, because of the camera angle, really, really close. And then only when you see where the ball actually landed in the end zone do you realize that it actually was not even in the vicinity of making that.
The official word on Lamar Jackson, by the way, is a knee sprain. That's usually the standard, what you get.
They ruled him out very quickly, which is usually not a good sign.
It came on the sack, right? The blindside sack from the right side, right? Because you can get blindsided from the right side.
Right.
Tight end Josh Oliver gives it up against Jonathan Cooper. Lamar didn't really feel it. He goes down, didn't look. Could you see anything? I didn't really see a close look at the replay or
that
anything.
One didn't look horrendous, and he was ruled out almost immediately. And then Trevor Lawrence looked like he'd suffered a career-ending leg breaker and went to the locker room, was back like 10 minutes later. It's like, no, I'm good. No signs of anything. I'm going to keep scrambling around and making plays and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of bizarre how different it can look versus what it actually does.
Yeah, so obviously that's something we have to keep an eye on. I know people like to run with the narrative that Lamar takes too many hits and all that stuff. This was a sack in the pocket. This wasn't him running away and scrambling. Last year, Lamar got hurt, missed the end of the season as well on a screen pass where he was just trying to create a little bit of room and ends up, I forget if it was his ankle or knee that got tweaked. But again, Huntley comes in. Huntley can run the ball. He had 5 first downs as a runner, so they can run a decent offense. You don't want to score 10 points. That's all, but they were struggling with Lamar early on as well. It's a good Broncos defense.
It's a really good Broncos defense. And God, this is the kind of game where you can just imagine how pissed off that defense must be after this game in the locker room. Because again, it's another game where both things happened that would drive them insane. Number one, the overall performance of the defense was fantastic. They did such a good job. Baltimore scored 10 total points. It's another game where if the Broncos offense had scored 18, they'd be 10-2 this season, It's another one of those games to add to the win column. But they did give up a 16-play, 91-yard drive to lose the game. So it's like it would be bad if they'd pitched like an absolute perfect game and still lost. Like that would be incredibly frustrating. But I think it's somehow worse that they give up just enough that they're kind of a little bit to blame themselves. Not in the overall scheme of things, Like it's still obviously the offense's fault that the defense scores or concedes 10 points and loses. But like it was in the defense's control to keep this win, and they didn't get it done, which I think somehow makes you more frustrated at the offense.
Wait till the Broncos, who they play the Chiefs twice over the last 5 weeks of the season. Wait till they hold the Chiefs to 17 points.
Lose both games.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing in the world more frustrating than when you're a little bit to blame yourself. It's worse. Like it's so much worse than if you can just blame somebody else.
You had a chance.
100% of it.
You had a chance to win 9-3, and you just let it slip away.
Right.
And you lost 10-9.
16 plays, like slowly and incrementally, and with a million paper cuts right at the end, you let it get away.
I want to change the narrative slightly here because I know we've blamed Russ for most things right here.
Yeah.
He did play better in this game. He did have 3 big-time throws. Yeah. This was, I don't want to say an old-school Russell Wilson, but like if you look at the stat line where he's not throwing the ball a ton, a big chunk of his throws are those chunk plays, just going 17 of 22 for 189, right? 8.6 yards per attempt. I know they didn't find the end zone, but this was one where they couldn't get anything going on the ground. They have a 41 run blocking grade, averaged about 3 yards per carry if you take away Russell Wilson's scrambles. So the running backs were under 3 per carry here. This was, I think, the rest of the team You've got Greg Dulcich, you have Jerry Jeudy, both of those guys at tight end and receiver respectively, creating some big plays. Other than that, the Broncos have little as far as receivers go and little production. I don't think this was a blame Russ game. I know it's his job to put them in the end zone and all that stuff, and it's been pretty consistent. But I feel like over the last couple of weeks, Russell Wilson himself is playing better, and we're starting to see the failures of everything around him just a little bit more than we did maybe even earlier in the year.
Yeah, I don't think the offense is necessarily putting him in a position to be more like old Russ. But the plays he's been making the last couple of weeks have been the old Russ plays. They look like Seahawks Russell Wilson, which is, navigate a muddy pocket, find a deep ball, connect on it. I don't think the offense is shifting. I don't think Hackett is, leaning into that more, and we're actually trying to create more of that. I think he's just somehow found more of those plays in the last couple of weeks, which again, I don't even think is necessarily, him figuring it out as much as just that's the way it's broken down, but it's the other stuff that's limiting it, which is not new. It was the other stuff that was limiting his success in Seattle. It's just that the baseline was so much higher. Now it's limiting it to almost no production whatsoever, and the good plays remain what they are.
Let's stitch this back into the Jets conversation really quick. I do see Rich Cimini from the Jets beat reporter talking about Garrett Wilson's splits with Zach Wilson. You were wondering.
Yeah.
In 7 games, in 2 games with White, it's only 2 games, my man. 6.5 catches per game, 19.8 yards per reception. I projected that out a little bit.
Yeah.
110 catches.
Yeah.
Pretty good. For 2,100 yards.
Yeah.
In a 17-game schedule, mind you.
True.
17-game schedule. So if you project Garrett Wilson's 2 games to 17,
but I also
he's a 2,100-yard receiver.
I think if you add in the Flacco games, it doesn't go much down. The Flacco games are really good as well. It's literally just the Zach Wilson games that kill him.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson does look like an absolute star. Anything else on this Ravens-Broncos game? Broncos fall to 3-9.
Yeah. Another really good 3-9, again, with that stat that if the offense just scored 18 every game, they'd be 10-2.
Yeah.
Another really good game from Roquan Smith, who
he was fantastic.
Looks dramatically better in this Baltimore defense than he did in Chicago.
Yeah, so it looks like a good move so far for the Ravens to get Roquan.
Which, by the way,
to their scheme.
Is 100% what we were saying about do you pay Roquan or not. If you have a defense already, Roquan can be the piece that comes in and pushes it over the top or adds something to it or really takes off. If you don't have anything around him, you can't, he can't be your foundation piece. That's not, off-the-ball linebacker in today's NFL cannot be the bedrock of your defense. It can be a really nice, piece on the top that adds something to it and, adds an artistic flourish or whatever, but it can't be the thing you build a defense around anymore.
Agreed. We'll get to the Bears in a minute here. Even though Best Ball Mania has ended, Underdog Fantasy is still the easiest and most fun way to spice up your football season with their Pick'em game. Just look for your favorite or least favorite player stats. Pick whether you think they'll end up with a higher or lower total than that number in this week's game, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Pick between 2 and 5 players for your Pick'em entry. Get all your picks right, and you'll take home some cold, hard cash. It's simple to get started. Just head to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app, sign up with promo code PFF, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code PFF. Get in on the action today. All right, let's go to those Chicago Bears. Packers 28, Bears 19. It looked like the Bears may have had it. You've got an injured Aaron Rodgers.
Should have had it.
You're up 16-3. There's a pivotal play. I think it was 4th and 4.
Yep.
23 seconds left. Yeah, 4th and 4. End of the first half. The Packers do not kick a field goal. Our friend Booger over to ESPN was tweeting, I think it was about the Bengals in particular.
Yes.
He's like, coaches just don't want the field goals, do they?
It was the play when the Bengals were facing 4th and short in the red zone, and they ran a jet sweep, right? Some kind of lateral play, and Carlos Dunlap just killed it dead in the backfield. And the rest of the world was like, why would you not just sneak it? Including players, by the way. A bunch of NFL players are like, why would you not just sneak the ball there? Sneaking is now all of a sudden the most unstoppable play in the NFL. Why would you not just pick it up that way? So everybody, like nobody is even questioning the decision to go for it in fourth down, except Booger. Booger McFarland, ESPN Boog, is like, it's like NFL teams don't even want field goals anymore. What good is 3 points to you? I just, it was quite funny, the contrast between true dyed-in-the-wool, old-school football and everybody else.
And so this is an example. Our friend of the show, Nick Wright, as he mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago, we need to start championing the wins, right? When coaches go for it. Had Matt LaFleur simply gone for it and taken the points on 4th and 4, right? It's 4th and 4. It's the end of the half. And I'll just say this. On 4th and 4 at the Bears 14, you lose the benefit of going for it and then also keeping if you don't get it, the other offense has a long way to go. You lose the field position angle because if you don't get this, the Bears are going to probably take a knee, go into the locker room and be ecstatic that they're up 16-3. So Matt LaFleur is legitimately weighing the options of I can make it 16-6, get the points, cut it to a 10-point deficit, or go for the touchdown. And if I don't get it, I'm still down 16-3, and this is a very difficult lead to come back from. But the Packers go for it. Aaron Rodgers finds Christian Watson, the unstoppable Christian Watson, for a 14-yard touchdown. That cuts the lead to 16-10, and that was the beginning of the Packers' comeback. And it wasn't, immediate. The Bears still scored and got up 9, but the Packers just too good in the end here.
Yeah, this really felt like a game that really got away from Chicago. They, I think, should have won this one pretty comfortably. Justin Fields strikes me as a guy that has a Dalvin Cook type 40 time where it just doesn't connect with the player that he actually is. Now, a lot of people were saying that Justin Fields stumbled in his 40 time. I remember I've seen the video. I'm still not 100% sure I buy that as a concept. Like, it's definitely not clean, but I don't know that it actually torpedoed his 40 time. But either way, like, he's a guy he ran like a 4.4 flat-ish, 4.43, something like that. But he outruns everybody. Like, there's nobody in the NFL that catches him or chases him down from behind or even shuts down an angle once he's running free through the defense. Once he catches a crease of space, he's gone.
Yeah, he kicked off the scoring with a 55-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
So and it looked like same old Packers, right? Trying to stop the run and the whole thing.
CBS had a tweet that entering this season, no quarterback in NFL history had ever had 3 50-plus yard rushing touchdowns in an entire career. Justin Fields did it in a month.
That is crazy. That is nuts. He's not supposed to be. He was not supposed to be like Lamar Jackson as a runner. He was not supposed to be that effective as a runner, and he has been.
Did he get? He got a passing. No, he didn't get a passing touchdown. So if he got in a passing touchdown, he also would have been the only quarterback in NFL history to have 6 straight games with a passing and rushing touchdown, but didn't manage to get that. But the point being, like, Fields is incrementally getting better and better, and really looking legit. Like, the initial sort of improvement was just all of a sudden the Bears leaning into this run game and becoming a real problem because you have to think about how good he is as a rusher. The passing game was lagging behind. It wasn't quite where you needed it to be. But the second you become that dangerous as a rusher, you buy yourself all kinds of breathing space to get better as a passer. One, because it's like the shiny object that distracts people a little bit, Like, ooh, look at this. Everyone's like, oh. And then you forget about the thing over here. It's actually not that good. But 2, because it makes your offense really productive. Like, the baseline gets so much higher. This is like Jalen Hurts last year.
Yes.
It just gives you, like, if Jalen Hurts was not the rushing threat that he is, his lack of passing prowess last season would have been a much bigger problem. And you would be saying, like, even with that, we were debating, is he really good enough to win a Super Bowl? Are the Eagles really going to buy into him? Should they be looking at quarterbacks? Blah, blah, blah. But without that, it would have been, man, this guy's just not really good enough. We're going to need a huge leap forward in production for him to be any kind of starting quarterback going forward. So Fields now is in that kind of bucket, but the passing is getting better. Like, we're not waiting for an off-season jump the way we were with Jalen Hurts. We're sort of seeing it happen during this year and with a way worse supporting cast around him.
We really have. I mean, the thing about the quarterbacks that add value through the run game, it's because we are definitely trained to look at the passing stat line and then project, okay, this is good, bad, or indifferent. And then you lose when you see a guy go, 6 carries, 71 yards. I think you lose the perspective sometimes, like how valuable those 71 yards are, or 100 yards, or in Fields' case, a 55-yard touchdown, when it's just not attached to the passing line, right? I mean, Lamar's been doing this for years now. We've talked about Josh Allen and his ability to do it. You mentioned Jalen Hurts. There's a reason why ESPN's QBR, Fields has an incredible QBR in this game, in part because of a 55-yarder. They almost equate rushing yards to like air yards for a quarterback, right? It's like you give it all to the quarterback, which I get to a point. The EPA is extremely high, obviously on a 55-yard run.
Yeah.
But it was all Fields, right? There's actually, when you do that, when you make a 55-yard run, of course somebody has to block and all that stuff, but you're not dependent on the receiver. You're doing that all yourself. You're creating a 55-yard touchdown that wasn't there, essentially. So that's where the running ability is extremely valuable. But I am so impressed with what Fields is doing. I know they lost. So impressed with what Fields is doing as a passer, as you said, because now he's handling pressure better. Not just maneuvering the pocket and creating plays with his legs, even just hitting a check down as a passer. He's the big time throws are back after we saw them last year and they disappeared early this year. So everything is starting to come together for Justin Fields. Now, all that said, the play that turned this game as the Packers are making their comeback, I said this with Burrow a few years ago. Like, Burrow needed one of those big games against a division rival, kind of like declare I'm here, and the Bengals are here. And Burrow started having those against the Ravens and against the Steelers and everything. I'm waiting for that for Fields. I know the Packers aren't in first right now, but Fields, have that game that declares I'm here to beat the Packers. And he was having it until Jair Alexander picks him off.
Yeah.
And that basically was the beginning of the end.
It was, but the other beginning of the end was the defense just letting Christian Watson run past it for a touchdown, like for the entire length of the field.
Yeah, that was right after the Alexander. No, right. I get it. I completely understand.
It feels like that was a statement game from Fields, but what we actually saw was the obvious limitations of everybody around him that we've been talking about before.
I'm saying the same thing you're saying about the Broncos defense, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not saying Justin Fields is to blame for this game. I'm saying he's doing his part. He has little margin for error because the Bears are not good off defensively as it is. And then they have a guy like Josh Blackwell out there playing defense for the first time in history in his career as a undrafted rookie. Like, they needed all the help they could get. And so it was actually, honestly, Jair Alexander picks off Justin Fields. And then when the Packers were up 1, Jair gets the interception. Then you see Christian Watson on the 45-yard jet sweep. The Jair interception, I think, was more just a great play from him. He was all over this deep curl route, jumps it, and it was an incredible play by Jair Alexander.
Yeah, no, it was. And look, I think we saw yesterday a really obvious illustration of just how bad the situation around Justin Fields is. Like, the Bears played 13 players on defense that had some kind of snap or whatever. Not a single one of them has a grade above 50-something. Like, it's a bad defense. It's a bad defense that doesn't have an awful lot of talent. And the wide receiver group, they've been able to make some plays, and Justin Fields has been able to get some stuff. But ultimately, you're throwing to guys like Equinemius and Brown, right? And that's a problem. And sure, it leads to, like, the mistake isn't necessarily on Equinemius and Brown, but there is a difference throwing to guys like that versus throwing to, high-end receivers that can make plays. So I think this was a game where Justin Fields, he's the Bears right now. Like, the only good things that are happening, essentially, are Justin Fields making it happen and then hoping that the rest of the team can just not screw it up enough, and that the mistakes Justin Fields still makes, which are going to be there, are not enough that it offsets whatever good he's been doing.
He even got a 49-yarder from N'Keal Harry.
He did.
N'Keal Harry
whooped
Jair Alexander on a double move.
That was one of the strangest plays I've ever seen.
No. Don't start hating. N'Keal was running away. He had to slow down a little bit.
He was not running away. Don't even think about it.
He was running away from Jair Alexander.
Do not even think about claiming that
Go
he
watch
was
the
running
play.
away. He was not running away from him. He ran away from him at the point where Jair was still running towards the quarterback. At the point where Jair suddenly went, oh crap, it's a double move, and started chasing after him, he was reeling him in like he was attached to a fishing line.
You said N'Keal Harry can't separate. He had about 10 yards of separation on Jair Alexander.
And then lost it almost immediately.
49-yard catch.
I've seldom seen that volume of separation given up that quickly.
So the Packers end up scoring 28 points. And I think if you were a Packers fan,
I just watched it again. He had a clear 5 yards of separation, right?
That's it.
So double move, Jair completely bites on the hitch. And by the way, not only does he bite on the hitch, but then stands there for a split second wondering, oh, what's happened? And then starts to chase it down.
Yeah.
So he starts chasing. He's got 5 yards of separation. Before Harry adjusts for the ball, he is closed up 5 yards of separation. So that is, 30-yard line. That's 10, 20, 35. So in 40 yards, literally 40 yards, the 40-yard dash, he had closed up 5 yards of separation on N'Keal Harry.
Yep.
A cornerback ran down a 5-yard gap in 40 yards.
Harry should always be a big slot anyway.
He should be a tight end at that point.
Might be close. 49-yarder, though, Sam.
But
49-yarder.
Catch point Marvel. That's what he does. Not going to separate, or apparently if he does separate, he's going to give it back in a heartbeat, but he'll make the play at the catch point.
All right, a couple things I just wanted to highlight here. Remember, Aaron Rodgers came into the game injured. Justin Fields came into the game injured. Fields, you couldn't really tell. On the broadcast, I think they made the point that you couldn't tell with Rodgers either, but you kind of could. I mean, there was a lot of missed throws, right? There was a lot of one-on-one opportunities down the field that were just out of the reach and, overthrown. I think if you're a Packers fan, it was kind of like uncomfortable offense, right? A.J. Dillon was fantastic as far as keeping the chains moving. He averaged over 5 per carry. I think Rodgers missed a ton of throws. But the Christian Watson factor just changes everything.
Yeah.
It really does, man.
He's got 8 touchdowns in the last few weeks.
So not only having the 14-yard touchdown at the end of the half, the 46-yarder on the jet sweep, it is opening up other plays, right? He's creating the big plays. He's finding the end zone, but he's creating other plays as well. As a jet sweep, just putting him in the slot now, almost to that level of Tyreek Hill scary when you put him in the slot, that you don't know if he's going to, what if he runs the deep over route? We don't have anybody that could run with him. You have to account for Christian Watson right now, and that's changing the Packers offense.
Yeah, it really is. The threat of what he can do is now clear to NFL defenses. Earlier in the season, he ran by whatever it was, Patrick Peterson in week 1 and then dropped it, but he just hadn't made enough plays for anybody to be concerned about it. Now, we've seen enough plays where he's just outrun somebody that was covering him or somebody that was vaguely tracking him or whatever, that you have to think about that and you have to take it seriously. And that does change the way defenses play Green Bay.
So, yeah, incredible. And once again, the guy that predicted the Christian Watson breakout.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Guys nailed it. We need to dig him up again. I don't think we took that bet, but we need to find him and credit him.
So he now has 2 rushing touchdowns.
If that was you, by the way, reply to whatever message you sent. You know what I mean? Whatever email it was claiming that was going to happen, reply to it so we can see proof, and then we'll shout you out in the next podcast.
Christian Watson with 7 receiving touchdowns now over the last 4 games.
And the rushing one.
And now 2 rushing touchdowns on the season. So can't keep that man out of the end zone.
I ran the numbers, by the way, the Garrett Wilson thing with anybody other than Zach Wilson at quarterback. Over 17 games, he would be projected to have 177 targets, 105 catches, 1,601 yards, and 13.6 touchdowns. Just to compare that to last year's Jamar Chase stat line, 106 catches for Jamar Chase, 1,800 yards, and 14 touchdowns. So that was one of the greatest rookie seasons ever from a wide receiver, and Garrett Wilson's numbers are basically right there, just as long as he doesn't have Zach Wilson throwing him the ball.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Just give him those projections, make them all pro.
Sure.
All right, Detroit Lions 40, Jacksonville Jaguars 14. Dominant outing for the Lions. By the way, the Packers, I'm all over the place today. Packers moved to 5-8. They've got some run the table ability here, Sam.
Still alive.
Still very much alive. They're on bye because we just want to have random late season bye. 6 teams on bye next week.
On the other hand, they are below the Lions in the playoff seeding.
Just saying, they're still alive. Lions are ahead of the Packers because they're 5-7, and they beat the Packers as well. They got the tiebreaker so far, but they're headed for a showdown later in the season. The Lions moved to 5-7. Is that 4 out of 5 now for them? Their only loss to the Bills.
Yeah,
5-7 Lions.
Where they ran them close. Where they ran them close.
Yes, they did. Jaguars fall to 4-8 here. Jaguars still struggling for that. As soon as you start buying into the Jaguars, this happens.
It does, but
Jaggy wires.
This was another one of those games where very early on, a few things happen, takes the game away, and then it's not the same game anymore. So it looked like this might be setting up for something of a shootout between the Lions offense that's been productive all season long and a rejuvenated Trevor Lawrence, who all of a sudden looks like he might have turned a corner and is able to make, a sort of statement game. And this would have been one to back up what he did a week ago against a legit defense. But immediately the Jags fumble the ball away, set up Detroit basically in the red zone. Detroit goes 7-0 up. And then Jacksonville is sort of pressing a little bit. And then Trevor Lawrence gets hurt quite early on, which looked really bad.
It did.
He had a guy twist him up as he was sacking him and basically come down on, the leg. Basically got rolled up, but by the guy sacking him. And I thought that was going to be the next example of people being rip up all the turf. Look at it. Knee got caught under him, wrecked knee. We're done.
By the way, the NFLPA is really pushing that as a talking point. They have all of their players citing it, so clearly there's been some communication there. We should talk to Mike Renner and see if that's been on one of the NFLPA calls.
Mike, the NFLPA correspondent, Mike Renner.
I don't want to give away any secrets, but Mike seems to know what happens on those calls.
I know we talked before about there not being any statistical major difference in knee injuries and ankle injuries and stuff between turf and grass. But there does, and this is part of the talking point that the NFLPA has been pushing, there does appear to be a significant statistical difference between what they call split something turf? Split something turf, which is where all the blades of grass, fake grass, are one strand, slit film, apparently. Ben Stockwell, live fact checker.
Wow.
Where there's one thing of grass, and then it's split into a bunch of little holes to sort of to make it thin it out and look like more blades of grass. But those little holes you get cleats caught in them and stuff, so that they're like traps. There does appear to be a statistical difference between that stuff, which 6 teams or something use, and anything else. So if your argument is, let's get rid of this stuff that does clearly, statistically, cause more knee injuries and ankle injuries and blah, 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 that feels like an entirely reasonable argument. And that, by the way, MetLife, that stuff's at MetLife, and MetLife is universally regarded by every player as the worst turf in the NFL. That stuff does appear to be a thing you could argue about. But everybody that you see, a lot of these players be every field should be grass. I've seen players bitch about grass turf as much as anything else. You go to a field that's grass and it's cutting up, and they're like, this is dangerous. We're going to get rid of this. If we shifted every turf field onto grass, we'd be hearing the same crap. It would just be slightly different.
I think indoor stadiums that have the grass that they wheel in, Arizona, I think Vegas does that now, right? I feel like that's probably the best bet. Because outdoor teams like New England years ago, they had these sloppy, terrible games on grass, so they were like, we want turf. And all of a sudden, it's our offense is better, right? The game's better on turf because you don't want those sloppy, terrible conditions. So outdoor stadiums wanted turf to avoid, the mud bowls.
Yes.
But indoor stadiums have the technology now to slide the grass in. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, right?
There's a lot of outdoor stadiums around there.
No, I understand.
So they can. That's what I'm saying.
I'm surprised by this because I didn't know the players were so adamant to be,
anyone arguing every field should be grass, I think, is forgetting what that used to look like. Do you remember that picture? One of the most famous photographs in NFL history, where Joe Montana is back in the pocket in the Super Bowl versus the Bengals, Chris's Bengals. it's like the Psalm. Like there's this perfectly formed pocket around him, but like the edges of the pocket are like trenches from the First World War where these 300-pound behemoths have been like exerting their force on the turf, the actual grass, and just ripping up giant trenches of this stuff. Like you don't want to go back to that.
No. Lions fans were upset that we didn't preview this game well enough, so we got to talk more about the Lions here. Okay. We don't want to upset the Lions fans. It was a dominant outing. Jameson Williams was out there as well, right? Their first-round pick. And, I mean, he didn't do anything necessarily, but you start to see DJ Chark, 3 explosive plays, including a 41-yarder on a
8
strike.
Snaps.
8 snaps for Jameson Williams. I'm just saying, DJ Chark and Amon-Ra St. Brown were both fantastic. And this offseason, you started to see this receiving core come together. You bring Chark in, you drafted Jameson Williams. As he gets into the mix as his speed receiver, he only had the 1 target as well. Man, you could start to see maybe the Lions offense. They've been explosive throughout the season, but you start to see all of that come together. Chark was fantastic in this one, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown just uncoverable. 2 touchdowns, 9 total first downs on just 12 targets and 11 catches.
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown was making some crazy plays, including one where Jared Goff basically threw the ball, I think, to a linebacker, and then linebacker drops it. It sort of bounces upwards slightly and forwards, and Amon-Ra St. Brown manages to end up catching
just
the
snatched
thing.
it.
Yeah.
That's where Goff's going to have a good grade in this game, but it's not. I mean, the stats were fantastic. He's not going to be 90+ or anything. He had that play basically thrown to the defender that was a completion. He had another deep dig route to Chark that was basically behind him. Chark had a great catch behind him, but Goff overall pretty efficient, 31 for 41 for 340 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and the Lions offense just continues to be really good. Again, though, against a Jags defense where they should have been pretty good, which is why this game could and maybe should have been a shootout. But the immediate turnover from Jacksonville put them in a hole. They were, I think, in the red zone, 3rd and 3, down 7 after that first screw up, and Zay Jones drops what was a first down conversion from Trevor Lawrence. All of a sudden, you're not answering 7 with 7, and now you're chasing the game. And what I think could and maybe should have been a shootout just ended up being a comfortable victory for Detroit, particularly when Lawrence goes down and has to miss a little bit of time.
Lawrence was back in, though. It was 30-6. Jaguars score a touchdown to get within 2 scores, 16, to get within 16 to say, hey, are they going to make a little comeback here? Nope. The Lions scored the last 10 points in the fourth quarter, including the final touchdown wide open to Amon-Ra St. Brown in the flat late in the fourth. So dominant outing by the Detroit Lions. Their defense has been so much better, Sam, since basically the Packers game. I know, again, they made some coaching changes. Whatever they did there, certainly much better.
They might have found something in James Houston as well, 6th-round rookie out of Jackson State. Remember, he was the guy
former Gator
that made a couple of plays against Josh Allen on Thanksgiving. He's not playing a ton, but he had another,
he had
12 snaps in this game, had a sack. He was the guy, I think, that sacked Trevor Lawrence and almost broke his knee. But all of a sudden, that's a few big plays in the last couple of games on really limited snaps for a defense that has not been really rushing the passer particularly well, despite the number 2 overall pick and the stable of young pass rushers that we expected to have an impact. All of a sudden, it's the 6th-round rookie, James Houston, who's making the most plays in the last couple of weeks.
In Houston, he had like a 95 grade last year, the FCS level. So, yes, might be a nice little find there. In the battle of 1 versus 2, Trayvon Walker actually a little bit better from a pressure percentage standpoint, but similar pass rushing grade. Aiden Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker both at 63 pass rush grades.
And really the story for that Jacksonville defense is just nobody making an impact. I mean, remember the first couple of weeks of the season, Devin Lloyd was playing out of his mind, hit the ground running, looked like an impact day 1 linebacker, making plays in coverage and against the run. He's been benched effectively for fellow rookie Chad Muma, who himself isn't making plays. Like nobody that they've brought in to make these plays has been making plays. Trayvon Walker, as you said, like relative small impact. Josh Allen's pressure is dried up. Like Jacksonville's defense is just not. It's the same old story, right? For years, they keep adding all these guys that they look like they're bringing in good talent, and then it just doesn't come together.
All right, let's go. Washington Commanders 20, New York Giants 20.
Yeah.
We had a tie. I was watching the game with my 7-year-old hangs out with me while we watch all the games, and he was very excited. He goes, "Daddy, that's just like the tie in week 1 that was 20-20, which I forgot. So the 2 ties this year, Colts and Texans, 20-20. Thanks, Harry, for reminding us. This felt like it should be a tie.
I mean, it felt like both teams were pretty happy for it to be a tie. Like,
by the end, yeah.
from quite late on, neither one of them appeared to be tremendously interested in winning the game.
There was a lot of key plays in this one, though. There was one on the game-tying drive by the Commanders, 4th and 4. Taylor Heineke with a big-time throw, scrambles out of the pocket, hits a deep pass. That essentially saved the game. I mean, if you're a Giants fan, you're one play away from getting the win. You're had opportunities there, but if both teams are similar, right? Overachievers, don't have the best passing attacks and all this stuff, and they're just battling, and neither team could get anything done. The Commanders had a chance to, win the game with a drive. They get sacked on first down in overtime. So every time somebody had a chance to win it, they didn't take it, Sam. They just didn't take it.
Daniel Jones is fascinating to me because I still don't understand how he's as successful as he is running the ball.
He's fast, long strider.
Yeah, but so are a bunch of other players that don't have any kind of success running the ball.
But that's like Mahomes, too.
But he's also got this like psychotic belief in his own ability to run the ball in a way that like dramatically outshines what he's actually capable of doing. So it's almost like there's 3 different Daniel Joneses. There's the version that you think he actually is, which is like non-athletic, goofy white guy that can't really make plays. Then there's the version that actually seems to be happening, which is this constant rushing threat that can make real plays almost all the time. And then you have the version that's in Daniel Jones's head, where it's like some sort of supersized combination of Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton, where he's like, oh, I'm just going to run over this linebacker in the open field. And he tries to I think he tries to run right over Jamin Davis and fumbles the ball on like a read option right at the start of the game. Like, what? Okay, fine. You made a nice play to get that far, but then avoid the big hit. Don't take him on and fumble the ball away. It's like, remember last year where they had him running some sort of QB sweep down in the goal line. He tries to run over Grady Jarrett. You're like, that's not, what are you doing?
Yes. You probably shouldn't do that.
I think he did. I think he actually succeeded in running over Grady Jarrett. But the point being, come on, have some, discernment as to what you're going to try and do here.
If you do add a little discernment, though, you see a guy that had 6 first downs once again on the ground, and that's why the Giants' offense is, sneaky good, because of his rushing ability. Him and Saquon Barkley were a pretty good 1-2 punch yesterday. But again,
no 1-2 punch. Daniel Jones and Saquon.
I mean, Daniel Jones led the team with 71 rushing yards.
I know.
Taylor Heineke, once again, not a great game for him, but he had the key 4th and 4. Both of his touchdowns pretty similar, kind of shallow crosses to Terry McLaurin, who just balls out for a 19-yard touchdown. And then Jahan Dotson, similar, weaving through the defense for a 28-yarder. Say what you want about Heineke, but he, gives his guys opportunities to make plays, I guess.
This was only the second game this season where Taylor Heineke had multiple big-time throws, which has been a thing that's totally missing from his game since he's been the starter, really. He showed that incredible playoff game where he came in, ran Tom Brady to the wire, and then that part of his game, like the big plays, just evaporated. And, okay, he's still been making some big plays, but they've been of the heave and hope variety where other guys have been making the play, and Taylor Heineke has just been sort of throwing the dice and hoping that it comes up 6s, But this game, he actually made a couple of big plays.
He did. It was a tie.
Yeah.
You have anything else to say about the tie? So anyway, the Commanders fall to 7-5-1. Giants 7-4-1. Obviously, both of them very much in the playoff mix here in the NFC. It is it's cluttered at the bottom there. So you've got Seattle as of right now, the number 7 seed at 7-5. Commanders on the outside looking in at 7-5-1. The Giants are the number 6 seed, just above the Seattle Seahawks.
Two more things from this game. Number one, the Giants get the ball back with 2 minutes to go ish, and Daniel Jones, another guy who, like Danny Dimes, the nickname, was because right at the start of his career, the dude was airing it out and hitting all kinds of deep shots and making some big plays down the field. Again, that just kind of evaporated from his game and hasn't been a big part. And then he was hitting he hit a couple of deep shots in this game to Darius Slayton, who's that connection again has sort of resurfaced in recent weeks.
Been really good.
And then fourth quarter, he's got less than 2 minutes to go, goes deep again and finds Slayton, basically a coverage bus. Slayton one-on-one against a free safety, hit him perfectly, and Slayton can't come up with the catch. Gets two hands to it and makes a mess of it on the way down. That would have set up the Giants basically at Washington's 40-yard line-ish with under 2 minutes to go. That was a game-winning play, or a play that would have gone a long way to winning that game that didn't get made, that Danny Dimes made and his receiver couldn't come up with. That changed the game, or at least went from potential win to let's all play for a tie here. And then the other thing that was happening a lot in this game was Wink Martindale's blitzes were scheming up completely unblocked pressure from the edge rushers. A lot of the times you see it for Baltimore, which is why we've been a little bit leery about Ravens pass rushers in recent years, that all the blitzes schemes those guys up for a lot of one-on-one opportunities or cleanup opportunities. This was scheming them up for literally unblocked. Kayvon Thibodeau was completely unblocked to the quarterback multiple times, and Azeez Ojulari was as well. So that's one of the benefits to the blitzing, is if you're able to confuse the protection enough, you don't just get free rushers from the safety or whoever it is you're sending as an additional add-on. You actually end up getting free rushers from the elite 4-4 pass rusher you have on the edge.
Big guys, yeah. Ojulari had a strip sack. Jihad Ward had a strip sack in there as well. Ojulari, I think it was his first game since week 4, so he made an impact there. I'm just rewatching a couple of those Slayton plays. It is interesting because Slayton gets the 55-yarder back in the second quarter, where he tracked the ball incredibly. It wasn't necessarily a great throw. Mm-hmm. He created a 55-yarder by winning at the catch point, and then the other one he misread it and then dropped it.
But it's another one that
then he gets cut off. I mean, this was play strength wasn't great in the fourth quarter for Slayton. He gets knocked off the route on the second and 10 as well.
But if that connection can come back again consistently, because that was a big thing early in Daniel Jones's career, and then just partly because of Slayton injuries, but it hasn't been the case again. If they can rediscover that consistently, that's a big thing for this offense.
Oh, man, but that's the story too, right? You have to be impressed with Daniel Jones this year, given the supporting cast. This is year 4 of that, right? You're not looking around saying Daniel Jones has these. He's never had good receivers to throw to, and Darius Slayton has always been a very good complementary piece. If you had, if the Giants had added A.J. Brown this offseason, so Darius Slayton can be a 2. I mean, I know they've had a million injuries, and you've got guys like Richie James running around there and all that stuff. But if you do have that true number 1 wide receiver and Slayton can just be that opportunistic deep threat like he was early in his career, it's a lot easier on your Daniel Jones evaluation, especially with what he brings as a runner.
Yeah,
I mean, you start to unlock some of those deep passes again.
You only have to look at the 2 biggest swings they've made at getting Daniel Jones help in the last couple of years, and it's Kadarius Toney, who was traded away to the Chiefs, and it's Kenny Golladay, who basically doesn't ever see the field anymore. There was it's hey, Kenny Galladay's going to play again this week, and it's actually no, he woke up feeling sick. No, he's not going to play. That's Kenny Galladay's right up there with Albert Hainsworth and whoever else as one of the worst free agent contracts that's ever been handed out to anybody.
Oh, good old Albert Hainsworth. Pittsburgh Steelers 19, Atlanta Falcons 16. The Steelers on a roll now, up to 5-7. Falcons fall to 5-8. It was a game-ending interception, essentially. Falcons had to go the full length of the field to try to get back into it, to at least get into field goal range to tie it up. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, interception. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that dig route where the safety jumps it. Great play by Minkah to finish this game.
Yeah. Mariota's bad. The Falcons, I feel, need to get eliminated from playoff contention, which isn't going to happen because the Bucs stink as well, really quickly so they can see if Desmond Ridder does anything to this offense. I understand that with the rushing attack that they have, the most rush-heavy team in the NFL, Marcus Mariota brings something to that part of the game that's different and elevates. It's like a sort of poor man's version of the Justin Fields thing, right? What he does on the ground as a rusher elevates the floor of this offense to the point where it's not just what he is as a passer. But what he is as a passer is terrible at the moment. And, like, Desmond Ridder is a good athlete. So the Falcons at this point have to be asking themselves, what is the difference here? Like, is what we lose on the ground more than offset by what we gain as a passing threat? Because Mariota is costing them games at the moment with his inability to make plays through the air.
This might be the game that does it, I think.
But the problem is they're like still half a game back from Tampa Bay for the division lead. Like that's the issue.
No, I understand. But 46 passing grade here, I could see this maybe be in the game where they do try to spark something and say, because yes, Mariota has helped the run game. We've said that all season, right? But they've also done a good job scheming it up, putting their offensive line in a good position to run block. They've got multiple-headed monster of running backs with Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier and everything. So Caleb Huntley, when called upon, I think they'll still be able to run the ball and do what they want effectively, even if they don't exploit Ridder to that many hits, right?
Did you see Patterson tweeting that like he doesn't care about your fantasy team? He's interested in wins. Which I think is the second time somebody from the Falcons has said that this year, right? The problem with that...
It's in the meetings.
Yeah. The problem with that statement, though, is that you can only make it after you win, you know? It's like, hey, all your bitching about me not getting whatever, like, I don't care. We're interested in winning games. It's like, yeah, but you lost the game. I think the whole point is maybe if we leaned more on Cordell Patterson or whatever, we'd have a better success, like Kyle Pitts earlier in the season, you know? It's not fantasy football. We're interested in winning. Like, okay, but you didn't win. Like, the whole point is if you threw that guy the ball more, maybe you'd have won the game. And Cordell Patterson's arguably your best player on offense. If you leaned into that more, maybe you'd have beaten the Steelers.
I'm not interested in your fantasy football team either, for the record.
I'm definitely not interested in your fantasy football team.
Domination, again.
Again, not interested.
Completely
dominant. Don't want to hear. Najee Harris.
Number one seed in the expert league.
Yeah, it's excellent. Najee Harris with a great game.
So,
a stiff arm from hell. Did you see him plant Richie James into the turf?
Who?
Was it Richie?
Richie James, the little wide receiver for the Giants?
No, not him.
Richie Grant.
Richie Grant, that's it. Did you see him bury that dude face first into the turf?
Yeah, Najee, it's going to probably be his highest graded rushing game of his career, and he looked really good. I mean, it's 17 carries, 86 yards, didn't have a carry more than 14, but forced 5 missed tackles, little plays like cutbacks. He was decisive, quick, powerful, like a little spark here from Najee Harris after, trudging through 3 yards per carry over the last year and a half.
He's a good running back.
Yeah.
The narrative around him has like never been correct. The idea that he would fix the running game because he's a first-round talent wasn't true. Neither was the idea that he should be benched when the running game wasn't working because it's not his fault. Okay, maybe you get a little bit of a spark by some smaller guys that are different types of back. But Najee Harris is a good player. If the platform is there for the running game to have any kind of success in a game, he will have success.
We had another pretty good game from Kenny Pickett throwing the ball. Pat Freiermuth. I love when tight ends they just kind of like discover their Gronk mode, their beast mode every now and then. And Pat Freiermuth had that 57-yard catch and run, just a little catch in between coverage. He's like, no, I'm just going to run through the defense, give you my stiff arm from hell and make it a 57-yarder. Like TJ Hawkinson was doing earlier in the year when he was only when he was a Lion, though.
Yeah.
Maybe only do it with the gritty head coaches like Dan Campbell and Mike Tomlin. He can't do it. Hawkinson doesn't have those Gronk modes.
Everybody's
with,
like a lot
Kevin
of
O'Connell.
Yeah, a lot of players seem to have like one or two of those signature plays as a tight end, and then it's only the really elite players like Kittle, Kelsey, Gronk that have a bunch of them or can do it consistently. Remember, this was like Freiermuth's version, and the Steelers have a bunch of them. This was like Freiermuth's version of, remember the Vance McDonald, the Vanimal play, where he went ape and just busted through a bunch of tackles and made a ton of yardage? Like this was his version of that.
Vance McDonald out of nowhere. This is what I'm saying. Like, tight ends just pick random times in their career to be like, I am Gronk, let's go. Vance McDonald did it in like year 8.
Yeah. And
Gary
usually
Barnage breakout in year 12.
That's the thing. Usually it's the run after the catch stuff because of, at some point being 250 pounds and quite mobile is going to result in that, right? Because a guy who's 5'10 and 180 is going to try and tackle you and he's going to bounce off because you outweigh him by 70 pounds. But what's really weird are the Gary Barnage years where it's like randomly the dude just becomes an elite receiver and racks up 1,400 yards out of nowhere.
It was just, it was a finesse receiving,
And then never again shall we see anything like that.
So Freiermuth has a huge game. As I mentioned, Kenny Pickett threw the ball pretty well. He hit Freiermuth on a nice touchdown up the seam as well. So, yeah, man, this was the Steelers. I mean, they scored 19 points and everything, but they're looking a little bit better. Minkah Fitzpatrick, star in this game for the Steelers defense.
The Pittsburgh Steelers apparently lead the NFL in drives of 10 or more plays on offense this season.
Drives to nowhere.
Yeah. This stat came up in the midst of a 16-play. No, it was more than 16. It was 16 at the point they said it. And then there was another few plays, which I think resulted in a field goal. Not even a short field goal.
They had a 14-play, 75-yard drive.
Yeah.
And a 12-play, 58-yard drive, both ending in field goals.
Yes. Like, that's the Steelers' offense this season. They're actually able to move the ball methodically, painstakingly, and then kick a field goal at the end of it.
My apologies. That was not Freiermuth on the touchdown. It was Connor Hayward.
But it was Freiermuth with the.
But it was Freiermuth on the beast mode play, yeah, because he had three catches for 76 yards.
Right. Connor Hayward with a great catch, first NFL touchdown.
Yeah, that was nice.
Cameron Haywood's brother, Iron Haywood's son, like the NFL royalty right there.
It is. Drake London had 5 out of the 9 receiving first downs for the Falcons. The Falcons are just fascinating because they took out. They do so much in the run game. They take out your pass rushers. TJ Watt doesn't do anything, all this stuff. But it's not enough to put enough points on the board for the Falcons. All right, 19-16, Falcons fall to 5-8. As I mentioned, Steelers move to 5-7, very much in the hunt with all those other AFC teams. The only other 1 o'clock game, I believe, Philadelphia 30, Titans 10, 35-10, sorry. Eagles, dominant once again here.
Yeah.
Against the Titans.
This
A.J. Brown revenge game.
Yes. Pretty big signature game for Philadelphia. They came out, it looked like right at the start of the season. Remember when they came out and just started throwing the ball around? It's like, wow, this offense looks spectacular with A.J. Brown and everything they can do now. The narrative coming into the game was, it's strength against strength in the run game. Philadelphia just run for 300 against Green Bay. Tennessee have a great run defense. That's going to be fascinating. And the Eagles just came out and went, well, we don't even care about the run game to start with. Let's see how you can defend the pass. And the answer is, versus A.J. Brown, not well at all. Like, he was just out here crushing Titans defensive backs, including, these back-to-back plays where it was a 41-yard bomb, which he just couldn't quite get the second foot down. It was like a toe out of bounds or whatever, so it didn't count. And then the very next play, it was a double move, like an out and up. And was it
McCreary?
Fulton, or was it McCreary? Fulton. I forget, whichever defensive back it was. Anyway, the out part led hit. So when he made the second cut upwards, the DB was right in his way. And rather than hit him, they both fall to the ground, illegal contact or whatever, he just ran over him. Like, he ran clean over, who was it?
It was Fulton.
He ran right over Christian Fulton, just flattened him, and was wide open, just trotted in for an open touchdown that Jalen Hurts hit him with. That's what you get with A.J. Brown, which is he's a lot bigger and stronger than you are. And if you can't live with that physically, he's going to make some things happen. Yeah,
also early in the season, I think I was saying, not to take anything away from Jalen Hurts, but in this particular game, this was the receivers dominating the Titans cornerbacks, right? So you have A.J. Brown, double move, as you mentioned, a 40-yarder. I mean, Hurts just waited for A.J. Brown to knock over Christian Fulton and just lobbed it up for a touchdown.
Yeah.
The other one was against Roger McCreary, where he threw it up. It actually hit McCreary's shoulder pad, and A.J. Brown just picked it up off his shoulder pad for How long was that touchdown? Just under 40. So 2 long touchdowns there. Devontae Smith had the first score, wide open. I think it was quarters coverage. He just had an ocean to throw it into. That was kind of the story of this game, right? A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith both go over 100 yards receiving, and the passing game, things were wide open against the perimeter players.
It was, and it got made to be the A.J. Brown thing was made to look worse by the fact that Treylon Burks lasted 8 snaps before being KO'd in the end zone for a touchdown and leading the game.
What a catch that was.
Incredible. But that's what I mean. Like, he was sort of answering. You know, the guy that was basically drafted to replace A.J. Brown makes his own spectacular play in the end zone against a contested catch with a hit incoming, somehow holds onto the ball despite being basically blasted and knocked out. But then that's him done for the game, right? He's essentially, HIA in the rugby term. He's KO'd. He's got to go the concussion protocol. But, like, if he'd stayed on for the game, the rest of the game, maybe we would have been looking at this like A.J. Brown and A.J. Brown 2.0. Like this, it's an equal thing. But we ended up saying this guy disappears, and now you just get to watch what you used to have absolutely wreck your defense.
The Titans obviously needed Treylon Burks. So Ryan Tannehill was sacked 6 times, 5 times on third down. And if you look back at all those sacks, this is, I think, what makes the Eagles so dangerous. They are much better on the back end than they were last year. There are some plays where James Bradbury is absolutely like glue to his receiver in their hip pocket. He was targeted 3 times, had 2 forced incompletions, but even on non-targeted plays, you just see him running the routes for receivers. James Bradbury, one of the best offseason signings that we've seen. They did it after the draft. That was huge. But the third down sacks, 5 of them, where a few of them Eagles are just taking away the first read for Tannehill, giving the pass rush enough time. Then there's other times where the pass rush just is getting home because the Titans, they can't hold up in pure pass protection. They just can't do it. And the Eagles have a great pass rush, and Tannehill just didn't have a shot on a bunch of those plays. So 6 total sacks, 5 on third down. Even if the Titans wanted to get back in this game, they couldn't convert anything on third down because they were taking away Tannehill's first read and then getting to him extremely quickly, creating those negative plays.
Yeah, and we're also seeing we're seeing the downside of the run game that you had being built off not the run blocking. That we previewed this part coming into the game, which is Tennessee's run blocking this year has actually been terrible. They're the worst team in the NFL at generating yards before contact on average. They're at like 0.8 or something. I haven't looked what it is after this game, but it probably didn't get better. Usually, any kind of success the running back has is at least reasonably built off some pretty successful run blocking. This season, coming into the game again, Derrick Henry had gained 85% of his rushing yards after contact, which is it leads the NFL. He's the only running back over 80%, and is the kind of number where you're like, okay, you can't do that long term. It's just not going to work. Even Derrick Henry can't do that long term. And the fact that he's been doing it that long this season has been kind of remarkable. But the last few weeks, particularly, when you're facing against slightly better run defenses, now you're starting to see that it's just not going to happen. Like, if the offensive line, if the run blocking is not going to get better than it has been, like, Derrick Henry just can't be Superman. Like, if he's getting hit at the line every single play, he's not going to go anywhere. So 11 carries in this game, 30 yards, 22 of which came after contact. Like, if the Titans want Derrick Henry to carry the offense, they need to give him a little bit of room.
Yeah, this is their worst run blocking unit in years, right?
It's
finally caught up.
In the Derrick Henry era, this is by far the worst they've had.
It's finally caught up to them a little bit. And I know the narrative on the other side is the Eagles' run defense has been terrible, minus Jordan Davis. Again, they haven't been effective all season. This was one of their best games from a run defense standpoint. Jordan Davis did return for 6 snaps. Wasn't himself. He got planted by Dennis Daly on a play, just thrown to the ground. So Davis only played the 6 snaps. And Ndamukong Suh, he played 25 snaps, 10 against the run. He was good. TJ Edwards was fantastic. But the Eagles took away. They took away that run game. They did win up front. And then that led to those 3rd and longs where Ryan Tannehill didn't have a shot. I mean, that was the game flow for the Eagles defense, essentially, was exactly what they wanted.
And I just want to make clear that, like, the narrative of this should not be, Derrick Henry has disappeared or Derrick Henry is not making plays or blah. Like, this is the fact that Derrick Henry was doing what he was doing for as long as he did it was miraculous. This is finally the inevitable result of having terrible run blocking producing a lack of Derrick Henry. Like, the fact that he was able to overcome that for most of the season or half the season is remarkable. Like, this is just coming home to roost now.
All right, let's get to the 4 o'clock games. Seattle Seahawks 27, Los Angeles Rams 23. John Wolford gets the start for the Rams. He gets hurt at the very end of the game that he got hurt?
Yeah, late on.
Very late. Bryce Perkins had to come in late. Wolford ends up with 2 picks, 43 passer rating, but he, made a few nice throws.
Yeah.
Made a few nice throws in there. The last interception was just
awful.
Was just sad.
I don't even understand what that was.
But it was Geno Smith and the Seahawks leading the comeback. A lot of back and forth between DK Metcalf and Jalen Ramsey in this one.
That was fun.
Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf both go over 100 yards. Geno finishes 28 for 39 for 367 and 3 touchdowns, including the game winner to DK Metcalf. It looks like the Rams, though, man, they were without Aaron Donald. They're getting to Geno Smith for 4 sacks. They're rushing the passer maybe better than they have all year. Have the game-winning drive. John Wolford leading the way with Cam Akers with what could have been the game-winning touchdown, but they couldn't hold the lead.
If I was Aaron Donald, I'd be kind of annoyed by that performance. Like, where has this pass rush been while I've been taking 3 guys out of the game every single play? Like, where were you then? And then all of a sudden, I'm not even in the lineup, and you're like, multiple guys have got 5 pressures in this game against what has been a pretty decent offensive line pass blocking wise for Seattle. This isn't, the Seahawks line from a few years ago where you expect them to get cut to ribbons by anybody. This has been a reasonable pass blocking unit, and all of a sudden the Rams pass rush decides to show up without the only guy that's been getting pressure for them this season. A, that doesn't make any sense. And B, if you're Aaron Donald, you'd be like, what the hell? Like, why can't you do this when I'm getting blocked out of the game by 2 or 3 people?
And it with what looked like, again, a Rams preseason game.
Right.
All in Leonard Floyd.
It's John Wolford to Ben Skoranek, passes being executed here.
That's what's, the Rams aren't fighting for a draft pick. The Lions have it. It's another huge game, huge day for the Lions.
Detroit.
They win, and the Rams continue to give them a better draft pick.
No Super Bowl champion, defending champion, has ever had a 6-game losing streak the year after their Super Bowl. This is the Rams' 6th game losing.
Oh yeah, man, they're gonna
first time in NFL history it's ever happened.
They're setting records here.
Yeah,
they're 3-9. I don't think it's going to get any better schedule wise. And Matthew Stafford has what was it?
It was like a spinal contusion or something, didn't you say?
It sounds like Stafford's probably done for the season.
At this point, what's like
any kind of spinal, anything like that, he's got to be considering retirement, right?
Any kind of major injury. Why would he go back?
Yeah, of course Yeah. So it's tough for the Rams because you're not like, oh yeah, we'll just get rid of the rest of the season. We'll get our number 3 overall pick and move on.
The only person that made out well last offseason was Andrew Whitworth, who was like, now's the time to ride off into the sunset. Aaron Donald thought about it and was like, no, I'll come back. I gotta say, Matthew Stafford, everybody that came back for one more go around.
As a Rams fan, you have your Super Bowl, so that's good.
Yes.
And it is kind of fun seeing like Tutu Atwell get in play, and they scheme it up. You mentioned Ben Skoranek and the way they've used him moving around, but they use Brandon Powell and again a lot of just complementary pieces that if they can get the foundation back in order. Matthew Stafford, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, all of the guys that you're supposed to be building around, you might be able to find some cool pieces around that.
They're the team this year, right? Every year there's one team that's just absolutely devastated by injuries. And you're like, there's no functional analysis to be taken from this. It's just this isn't the team that we thought we were watching. Like the Rams, this is not the Rams. This is a bunch of guys that are now playing because the actual Rams are injured. And consequently they're losing games. Now, to their credit, they gave this a hell of an effort. Like
they really did.
This was not a game that should have been close and was for the entirety of it.
So from a Seahawks perspective, boy, did they need this. They moved to 7-5. given what's happening in San Francisco now with the Jimmy Garoppolo injury and everything.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a battle at the top of the NFC West. Credit the playmakers, man. You know, Geno Smith making big plays when needed. Tyler Lockett creating after the catch in this game.
And by the way, that's why it doesn't matter that he goes down like late career Isaac Bruce whenever there's an inevitable hit coming, because when he sees a crease for a touchdown, he'll take it. Like, he maximizes what he can get when he thinks he can get it without getting annihilated. And then the second he believes that's no longer the case, he'll hit the ground. And frankly, that's 100% smart decision making for a guy who's built like he is at his age. I'm like, that's why Tyler Lockett is fine making those decisions.
I'm still very impressed with Geno Smith.
Yeah.
And what he's been doing this season. Because I think with I guess I was kind of like this with Ryan Tannehill a couple of years ago, because when a guy has a performance that's not in line with the rest of his career, don't you feel like you're always waiting? Like, is he really going to be able to keep it up?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're not.
And we were for quite a while.
Yeah. And like Sam Darnold last year, they were 3-0. He was playing pretty well. It's like, all right, let's just wait and see. Let's wait and see. And he did regress back into Sam Darnold at one point.
Yeah.
With Ryan Tannehill a couple of years ago, he never really did regress back in. He's been better with the Tennessee Titans pretty much all the way through. We're continuing to just see more and more of that from Geno Smith. I don't know that we ever see that full regression into backup Geno Smith. He's so comfortable in the pocket, moving around the pocket. He goes down, sacked 4 times, but kept bouncing back, man. Kept bouncing back and making those plays.
Yeah, he's a different guy than we thought he would be, or that I think he was earlier in his career. So I don't think Geno Smith is turning back into a pumpkin anytime soon. Do you remember the Bobby Wagner interception in this game?
Yes.
I don't
I'm rewatching it again right now.
I don't see a way that decision can coexist with the Hunter Henry no catch from Thanksgiving. And
nobody really has possession of it when it's on the ground, right?
Correct.
But the ball never hits the ground, so whoever ends up with it has to have the ball.
The explanation given by Mike Pereira was essentially the exact opposite logic of the explanation given for the Hunter Henry no catch on Thanksgiving.
Did this ball hit the ground, though?
Which it hit it in the same way as, like, it touched it while he was in control of it. But his logic was he has to maintain control because it touches the ground. He's got to maintain control of it after he goes to ground, at which point he loses control of it and Bobby Wagner takes it away from him. And now it's an interception. You're like, well, if that's how that works, which is once he loses it after it's still live and the guy can take it away from you, then it's a catch for Hunter Henry because he loses it after the ball hits the ground and he then regathers it before it touches the ground. Therefore, he caught it. So those two plays cannot coexist with the same logic, which means one of them was wrong. Either this isn't a pick or that wasn't an incompletion. Take your choice.
Give Hunter Henry that touchdown back.
Yes. Not even the touchdown. I think you can give him a catch. Like, I think you can realistically argue that he lost control on the way to, or after it hit the ground and regathered it short of the goal line. So it's not a touchdown. But it's a catch. The same way this is an interception because it didn't hit the ground while he didn't have control of it.
Walt in the chat also reminds us that Seattle has Denver's first-round pick. Denver's also 3-9. Man,
it's a bunch of
what a year for the Seahawks and the Lions
regretting those trade decisions.
I mean, the Rams aren't regretting anything. The Rams, no regrets whatsoever.
No regrets right up until you get to draft day and you're like, yeah, it would have been nice to have that top 5
you have a
pick.
Super Bowl. Like, I'll wipe my tears with my Super Bowl ring.
You're still gonna have,
it won't work well, but I would wipe my tears with my ring.
You're still going to have regrets. You might still think it was
There's
worth
zero
it.
regrets. There's no regrets. The Rams could win 3 games next year, and I would still say, you know what? It was all worth it. It was all worth it. I got Matthew Stafford and I got my ring.
Yeah.
Of course it's worth it.
You're still going to want the pick.
Not in lieu of anything else.
That's what I'm saying.
Regret means I would do something differently.
I don't think it does.
There's a difference between regret and FOMO. Okay? The Rams are going to have a little FOMO come draft time. They're going to kind of wish they had, the number 3 overall pick. They're going to dream a little bit. They're going to have a little bit of fear of missing out. FOMO. They will not have regret. They will not have regret. They will not go back and be like, man, if I could do this all over again, I wouldn't do that Matthew Stafford trade. That's really killing me because I wish I could draft Jalen Carter.
To quote the dictionary, the word regret is a feeling of sadness, repentance, or disappointment over something that has happened or been done. We have traded away this draft pick. I feel sad, repentant, or disappointed by our lack of draft pick that is sitting here in the top 5.
No, repentant is a turning away of what you would do. You would not turn away and repent from the Stafford trade.
But you would feel both sad and disappointed that somebody else is picking with your top 5 draft pick.
FOMO.
Anyway, they don't have it.
Seahawks' entire backfield is beat up.
Yeah.
Kenneth Walker was screaming at Geno Smith for some reason, too.
I don't know what that was.
Well, what you do here is you make up a story. It's like Kenneth Walker's upset because he's not getting the ball enough, so he's yelling at Geno Smith.
Yeah.
That's what the announcers do, right? I don't know what they said on the broadcast, but
Well, they just highlighted that they were getting into it.
they were getting into it. So Kenneth Walker, everybody's banged up in the Seattle backfield, so that's something to keep an eye on going forward. But good job by the Seahawks, and again showing that you can rely on Geno Smith and their 2 awesome receivers, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and some of the others, to create offense there. All right, we'll save the good games for last.
The good games.
And the Dallas game. Las Vegas Raiders 27, Chargers 20. The Raiders with 3 straight. It's their first win in regulation since week 7.
Wait, did we miss the Miami-San Francisco game?
Nope.
Oh, no, you're saving that.
I'm saving that.
Even though that was a 1 p.m., right?
It was a 4.
Was it?
Yeah.
No.
It was 4 p.m. It was in San Francisco. They weren't going to play at 9 a.m. there. 10 a.m.
We're going to play at 9 a.m.
Yeah. It's a 4.
Okay, all right.
Vegas 27-20. Raiders move to 5-7. Chargers fall to 6-6 and out of the playoff picture here.
Yeah.
The Chargers get a pick 6 early.
Yep.
And so there's a point, like their offense had nothing going until they had 1 touchdown basically until Justin Herbert heaved one up on 4th and 12. I mean, he threw it into a good spot. But a 35-yarder to Keenan Allen. The Raiders pretty much dominated this game, other than a weird pick 6 that could have been pass interference.
Right, and in a really weird way. Like the first time the Raiders entered the red zone happened with a minute left in the 3rd quarter when they were up 24-13.
Yeah.
Because all their big plays had been like deep strike plays, and then weird.
I don't think it's too. It might be too little, too late. And if you're to rehash the Raiders season, it's a weird one because, like the Saints game, where forget entering the red zone, they didn't cross the 50 until the 4th quarter. Like inexplicable in this whole season for the Raiders. But are they finally getting there? Like I said this about 8 weeks ago. All right, they're starting to figure it out. They got Josh Jacobs and their identity, and they're running fullbacks, and they're working play action off of that. But now when you see Devontae Adams go off, 8 catches for 177, the 2 scores. He's got one-handed catches. He's winning down the field, and you don't even need the rest of the receivers. Well, there were some games where Devontae Adams is that good.
Yeah, this is where the Derek Carr to Devontae Adams connection started to look a lot like Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams, where all of a sudden they're connecting on back shoulder, one-on-one targets where it's an automatic put the ball in the air.
See, that's what I was
going to win.
I haven't been right about a lot this year, Sam, but I did say maybe the technician Devontae Adams
this is a good week for you,
takes a little bit more time than the freaks Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown to get involved, to be that dominant number 1 for their respective offenses.
But it's also the inbuilt connection that the quarterback and the receiver has as well. Like there's so many plays over the last however many years where it's been Rodgers looks up, realizes he's got single coverage with Devontae Adams, and back shoulders it. Like I'm not going to expect you to run past the guy. I'm just going to put it in your back shoulder, and you will adjust at the last second and make the play. And that was such an automatic thing between Rodgers and Adams, and it's going to take time for Rodgers to build that with any other receiver. And you can see this year, those plays don't really exist.
Don't have those
for Green Bay. Which is a big loss because that was such a huge part of that offense that if you ever showed him single coverage, boom, immediate 20-yard completion, back shoulder, never a threat.
Now, and that's why Rodgers keeps overthrowing deep balls because he doesn't have the back shoulder in his pocket.
Right. Now it's like he doesn't trust anybody to make that play. And he also knows that if the receiver isn't going to make that play, it's quite risky that the corner will. So he's not even attempting those throws. And then with the Derek Carr part, it's like, he used to play with Devontae Adams like in college, but that was like Devontae Adams was not even a good NFL receiver right at the start of his career. he's developed into something dramatically different. So they might have, chemistry and they might be friends off the field or whatever, but like they're not going to step into that. Like Derek Carr cannot be expected to be in sync with Devontae Adams the way Aaron Rodgers has been with the entirety of Devontae Adams' career being between the last time he played with him. So I think now what we might be seeing is that connection starting to really bear fruit, and it is a potent one. Like it's every bit as powerful as the A.J. Browns and the Tyreek Hills have had on their respective teams. And apparently it's enough to power an offense.
So 3 straight wins for the Raiders after 2 walk-off overtime wins. This one was, it got to 7 points, but again, the Raiders, pretty much dominated this game. One of the touchdowns came on a flea flicker, and I got to say, Josh McDaniels, I think, has always done a really good job of creative flea flickers, Sam.
Creative flea flickers.
You'll see, because most flea flickers are like straight handoff, and then, you throw it back to the quarterback. McDaniels has had some through the years where it's like an outside zone, right? You run an outside zone play, you're running a few steps to the right, and then you're tossing it way back to the quarterback. This one was kind of unique, too. It was out of the shotgun. You don't see a lot of these out of the shotgun. It looked like a little inside zone play. Devontae Adams gets behind the defense for the 45-yard touchdown. Just saying, little creativity there. It's also why I said a few weeks ago, it's putting Josh McDaniels and Nathaniel Hackett in the same bucket this year, I think was unfair, because everything's been a disaster in Denver on his side of the ball. The Raiders have shown way more signs of life, and they have games like this where it's like, all right, we can have Carr and Adams and Josh Jacobs once again running hard and 120 whatever yards and a touchdown and everything. Like, they've got ways to win offensively, and now their defense is playing better. The Raiders' defense was really bad early in the season. This was a good all-around effort from them in this one.
Has Chandler Jones been carrying an injury for the majority of this year? Because one of the sort of under-talked about facets of the Raiders not being as good as we thought they would be this season is that Chandler Jones, one of their kind of big load-up off-season decisions, or to try and keep pace with the rest of the crazy AFC arms race, they bring in Chandler Jones. You go opposite Max Crosby. All of a sudden, you've got 2 threats, and he hasn't been a threat this year. He's got a pass rushing grade before this week of 60, and 27 total pressures, 8 of which came last week.
Yeah, his worst season basically ever.
Yeah, so he's going to have 37 total pressures after this week, 18 of which came in the last 2 games. So I don't know if he just got healthy randomly, but the last 2 games, and not against bad players. Again, okay, 2 rookies, but Jamari Salyer has actually been playing pretty well as a left tackle. And I don't even think, there were people tweeting yesterday because of the game Chandler Jones was having that, Salyer's just overmatched here. Salyer played okay. And then Charles Cross, who has been, again, the definition of solid left tackle, even as a rookie. So, sure, they're not the best players in the world, but both of those guys have been playing at or above league average left tackle pass protection. And those are the best 2 games by a mile that Chandler Jones has had. I don't know if he's been carrying something all season and has kind of gotten healthy the last couple of weeks, or if randomly 10 years of veteran pass rushing savvy works especially well against rookies, even if they're good rookies, because they're just not aware of the tricks you're able to bring to the table. But whatever it is, the last 2 weeks, the impact that Chandler Jones has made has been a difference maker to that defense.
Completely different, right? Having that compliment to Max Crosby is huge for the Raiders. Justin Herbert on the other side, by the way, probably having his worst or second worst grade of the season coming out of this. He's going to be at about 75 overall grade at the end of this week. Last year he was a 90 as a rookie, 79.9, just about 80. Really impressive rookie season. Why when you step back and look at the totality of Herbert's season, we always talk about a great arm and they don't throw down the field enough and these injuries. And is it just the injuries and the situation? I mean, it's going to end up, he's on pace for his worst grade now in year 3. So Herbert discussion. He just hasn't developed, or is it just everything around him?
Yeah, I'd lean towards everything around him. He had some nice connections with Keenan Allen in this game. Keenan Allen has been missing most of the year. We talked about, his offensive line. The left tackle is the, 6th-round rookie as opposed to the first-round rookie who was really good. Not first-round rookie, first-round player who was like an all-pro essentially or a Pro Bowl caliber player. That's a problem. That every injury to the offensive line has made it worse. Like, I think Justin Herbert is far from the problem, obviously. I would lean to the difference between like this version and previous versions is simply the situation around him isn't as good.
I mean, they are DeAndre Carter. It's another one of those, like DeAndre Carter makes some cool plays every week, some impressive plays, but boy, do I feel better about him as your 3 rather than the guy you're going to on 4th and must have late in the game.
Yeah.
Right. 4th and 9, drop in there and the whole thing. So yeah, just bringing it up. Just bringing it up for discussion here, Sam.
Just asking questions.
Just asking questions. When do we start worrying about Justin Herbert? Anyway, Raiders also 5-7, Chargers 6-6. So the Chargers and Patriots tied just outside the playoff picture, with the Raiders tied with the Steelers and someone else for 5-7. Who else was 5-7 in the AFC?
In the AFC?
It's right there. That's making
Steelers,
a move.
Steelers, Browns, Raiders.
The Browns, they're the team. They're making a move. They're all making moves. They're all hashtagging the hunt. All right, let's go. San Francisco 33, Miami Dolphins 17. Supposed to be the game of the week. It looked like, hey, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo's injury is going to open the door for the Dolphins, but it didn't at all. The Dolphins basically held to a 75-yard touchdown by Trent
First
Sherfield.
play of the game.
First play of the game.
75-yard touchdown, and you over there was like, oh.
Dolphins are unstoppable.
Yeah.
Well, Tua, at one point in the game, Tua was on pace for 2,000 yards and 30 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I thought he might keep it up.
Oh, okay.
It was so easy.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't have the science on this, but I think half of Tua's completions were that same exact play.
Yeah.
Quick hitter, little mini seam route, 8 yards.
Like RPO, skinny post.
The glance. But Sherfield was just wide open. He runs through the defense for 75, and it's like, how are you going to stop the Dolphins? Mm-hmm. And then the Niners did. They did a much better job of stopping the Dolphins. But the big story here, Jimmy Garoppolo, broken foot. He only had 4 dropbacks, did have 56 yards in there, but he's out for the season already. Brock Purdy came in and held the fort pretty well.
Yeah.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Shanahan going tin cup again. We're back to this story. I got to deal with another one of these guys. Nick Mullins, C.J. Beathard, Brock Purdy. Just add them to the list.
You love the tin cup story yourself, though.
Well, so where it differs is only one club is wrong. Like the tin cup thing, tin cup had like an entire bag of gardening tools that he was going around the course with. Like, actually, when you look at what Shanahan has, it's the majority of a set of clubs. It's just your most important one is like a pool cue or something, right? Like, that's the problem, is that the quarterback is Brock Purdy or C.J. Beathard or Nick Mullins or whatever it is. But the guy's surrounded by Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, even though he's a bit banged up. And, like, the guys around him are really good. But now you got to get it done with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, for the rest of the season. And you can, evidently, but it is – so when you look at the production that Shanahan has gotten out of these backup quarterbacks, it's always absurd. Like, Nick Mullins has the same, like, career yards per attempt figure as Aaron Rodgers or something crazy like that. Very similar. But the difference manifests in wins and losses. The production for those guys is actually absurd. But they don't have the same win and loss record that Jimmy G has, who's able to beat Steve Young and the George Seifert, like, dominant 49ers team in terms of win percentage. That's where it becomes a problem. But this game showed that not necessarily, like, it's the best supporting cast that's ever been around one of these tin cup quarterbacks. So maybe it's enough for him to keep going.
Yeah, Jimmy G's 38-17 as the San Francisco 49ers starter, 2-0 with the Patriots. So Jimmy Garoppolo, for whatever it's worth, has won a high percentage of games that he has started, including yesterday, because that's how they do those stupid
his
stats.
win.
It should be Brock Purdy's win yesterday. Jimmy G didn't pitch 5 innings.
So does Purdy doesn't get a win at all? Like, nope. He's just nothing. He's still nothing. No. He still doesn't have a win or a loss on his record.
Because the people who track these things, simply say, did you start the game? Yes. You're the quarterback of record. Whatever happened in the game goes to you. Like Lamar Jackson, win yesterday. Got the dub. Jimmy G got the dub. Even though it was Brock Purdy and Tyler Huntley.
I'd be tempted to like play number one, just make a random quarterback every week.
Just mix it up.
Just for fun. You know?
No, I don't know if like you start in the Wildcat if Taysom Hill gets the
That's
start.
what I'm saying.
I don't know if that is how that works. But anyway, the 49ers have won a lot of games with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm. The Brock Purdy story is an interesting one. He was Mr. Irrelevant, right? Last pick of the draft, big story there. He had a fascinating career at Iowa State because as a freshman,
he got worse every year.
He did. You know, you have some guys who get better every year, like Drew Lock.
He's another one of those guys whose career makes more sense upside down.
Yes, the Lane Kiffin, we call this, right? Like Lane Kiffin should right now be getting the Raiders job.
Right.
Not back in 2008 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
7, 8. When the heck was that? That was years ago.
Time ago.
Lane Kiffin, like, came out of the womb as the Raiders head coach, then worked his way down to Florida Atlantic, and then worked his way back up. Yeah. Like, read Lane Kiffin's career. We do this once a year.
2007.
2007 Raiders head
until
coach.
2008.
He was like 15.
He's 47 now, and he took the Raiders job
15 years ago.
Yeah.
He's 32. and then he progressively got worse jobs. And he's just now he's got the parabola of career.
Yeah.
Where's Purdy's career? Clicking on it right now.
Cool.
PFF Ultimate. Please hold.
Please hold.
2018, he had an 80. Just reading passing grades here. They did literally get worse every single year for Brock Purdy.
How many head coaches would be younger rather than Lane Kiffin now if he was still in the job? Not that many. McVay, O'Connell.
At 47?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd still be one of the younger coaches.
Right.
Vrabel. Right?
Yeah.
No, Vrabel's probably up at that age. Anyway, Brock Purdy's PFF grades. 89 as a freshman.
Same age as Vrabel.
79, 79, 79. But actually pretty consistent, but never actually got better. Passing grades did get a little bit worse as his career went on. So Purdy, impressive 2018, never really improved. You saw limited tools from him at Iowa State, right? He's 6'1", 220. You saw it on the interception yesterday, too. He kind of throws it up to Xavier Howard. By the way, Christian McCaffrey probably blew the protection there, and that's the reason why Purdy got hit there.
The self-destructive, self-sabotaging defensive interception. Like the interesting case, when you tie player bonuses to Pro Bowls and All Pros, sometimes they're incentivized to catch a pass that the team would be better off if he had batted down and taken.
Oh, on 4th and 4, yeah.
Yeah, and taken an additional, bunch of yardage. I just think that's kind of I'm actually fascinated that
you should rewrite it, either interceptions and or 4th down breakups.
Yeah. I'm kind of fascinated that teams haven't stripped that out of like bonus structures where there are certain things that incentivize players to do things that aren't necessarily in the best interests of the team overall. And catching the interception on 4th down when it's down the field is one of those things.
But that's just like football, man. Stats are stupid in football a lot.
But I think there's ways of doing it.
Like interceptions are an easy thing to track.
It's like it blows my mind that Pro Bowls are a thing that are written into contracts based off how farcical the Pro Bowl situation is. Like the number one player at the moment in the fan vote, like the number one most voted player or something, is like the Vikings long snapper, who himself was asking, like, how does anybody even know my name? Oh, they don't. I promise you, they have no idea who you are. What this simply signifies is that Minnesota has been able to mobilize the most random ass clicks on the internet system that is functioning at least like a third of this voting process. And yet NFL teams are out here going, sure, we'll give you money attached to a Pro Bowl like appearance. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Brock Purdy's taken over in San Francisco. We'll have more on that throughout the week. The story here, though, was after the 75-yarder.
Yep.
You also had a 45-yarder to Tyreek Hill. He did get behind the defense. And
we had like two big plays.
And two big plays. And other than that, Tua was definitely off, but the Niners did a great job slowing down this Dolphins offense.
Tua was really off. Like this felt like last year or the year before Tua. What I couldn't work out was Like they got to him a little bit early in the game. So heading into this game, like my analysis was Teron Armstead isn't playing. Brandon Shell and Greg Little are going to be your tackles. And if you look at the PFF grades of those two guys versus Armstead when they played left tackle this season, it's unbelievable. Armstead is at like an 80. The other two are at something like a 14 and a 4. They had all given up about the same number of pressures, but Armstead had done it on like 3 or 4 times the combined snaps of the other two. So you're like that versus Nick Bosa. That on its own, you're thinking, I mean, that's game over. Like we saw what this looked like last week, and it ground the offense to a halt. And they got to him a couple times early, and then not so much. It wasn't like an onslaught for the entire game, but it was almost like getting hit a little bit early made Tua go back to being last year or the year before Tua. And all of a sudden, you're seeing him just be inaccurate, because that was one of the things, the last couple of years. He hasn't even been the most accurate quarterback in the NFL, which you kind of have to be if you're going to be, the guy without the great arm and the amazing mobility and the giant frame and all those kinds of things. So his adjusted completion rate in this game was 59%, which is 20% lower than his season's adjusted completion percent, 20 percentage points.
Yeah.
He just missed a bunch of throws. Like his interception, or one of his interceptions, was like just a routine, simple pass into the flat where he left it way high and behind, and then that ends up getting deflected to the DB behind the play who picks it off. Like, those are plays that don't really get explained by bad protection unless you're saying simply the fear of the bad protection is creating this bad play.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, because again, the pass blocking grades, I know Nick Bosa had 3 sacks and all that stuff, but the pass protection grades, which account for the snap for snap,
they weren't as bad as I expected them to be.
Not bad at all, right? I mean, so there are you just saw the accuracy. He was skipping throws, overthrowing other, he was just missing, man. He was just missing. So yeah, you also have, I know there's a lot of stories about the middle of the field and how that's where the Dolphins attack, and that's where Fred Warner resides for the 49ers. There was a great pass breakup where the receiver was kind of open behind Fred Warner, right? It's like the Dolphins create space in their offense. Fred Warner jumps up and tips it. I feel like that was a big impact play too, right? I mean, Tua's running this offense, and it's like, this has been open. This has been open all season, right? This has been here. And no, Fred Warner's just got, more range and, better feel for the middle of the field than most middle linebackers, and he tips the pass, right? So the Niners did a great job just taking away what the Dolphins did. On the other side, the Dolphins, the Niners still were able to run their offense, even with Brock Purdy running the show.
Yeah.
And we talked about coming in, it's because there's 2 offensive minds who know each other's offenses inside and out, that should be to the advantage. Like, that is the better advantage for the defense, right, is the offensive coaches being able to give insight. But it was really only one team that took advantage, and it was the Niners, who do have a better defense. And again, since they would, other than like 1 or 2 games where they were dealing with some injuries and everything, the Niners defense has been one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL.
Was really impressed by Jimmy Ward's interception.
That was really good.
Like leaping over like a corpse and then catching the ball, knowing that because you've had to leap in that way, you're about to face plant. Like, there's no way of saving yourself from the impact that's going to happen. So he catches the ball in, like, having taken flight and having to jump over somebody, and then holds on despite crashing like face first into the turf. That was a very impressive play to come up with, not just break up.
Yeah, the receiver basically stumbled in front of him.
Yeah, and he like leaps over him.
But that was another, the first 2 interception, like you said, it was just a wide open pass in the flat.
Yeah.
It wasn't even it was just a miss. It was just inaccurate miss. The Jimmy Ward one, you're right. It was like he jumped over a corpse, as you said. I like that. That was another play where Tua's, he's a little under pressure and he forces it. I don't even know what the receiver is supposed to be doing there, but nice play by Jimmy Ward. But that was early third quarter, the Jimmy Ward play. And again, outside of the 75-yarder, Tua, the entire offense was pretty flustered.
Yeah, this might have just been a weird game. But if this is what happens when you don't have Teron Armstead at left tackle, knowing that Teron Armstead has a fairly extensive history of injuries and missing time, like if they don't have him for any kind of playoff run they have, that might be the end of the Dolphins.
Might be the end, huh?
just in terms of being able to win the Super Bowl.
So both teams are 8-4 now. Niners have the 1-game lead over the Seahawks in the NFC West. Fascinated to see Purdy over there right now.
Yeah, I mean, their number 3 quarterback now has to take them the rest of the way.
All right, let's go to one more 4 o'clock game, right? Then the Sunday night debacle. All right, Cincinnati 27, Chiefs 24. Game of the week here. Bengals move to 8-4. Chiefs fall to 9-3. It's the 3rd straight win for the Bengals against the Chiefs. They beat them twice last year, and now again this season. A little fourth quarter comeback for Burrow and the Bengals. It was a great back and forth game here by, again, 2 of the best teams in the AFC.
Yeah, 3rd straight win against Kansas City. 3rd straight, all 3-point wins. They've all been decided by 3, and it was exactly the same score as the AFC Championship game, which is pretty interesting.
A lot of symmetry here.
Also, the first, your friends of our friends, the 33rd team, this is the Chiefs' first loss in November or December since 2019. November 2019.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Isn't it? Like, Kansas City tends to stumble a little bit earlier in the season, but then once they hit November and December, it's all good. Like, the first loss since November the 10th, 2019 is a crazy statistic. And they almost got it done in this one.
So the key play here was Travis Kelce fumbling.
Really was critical
In the fourth quarter.
They were about to go
pretty much it.
Yeah, they were about to go up 2 scores in the fourth quarter, and Kelce fumbles. Who was it, Jermaine Pratt that forced it out?
I think so. I believe it was Pratt. This game, it was really good, man. The Chiefs get up early. They get up 14-3. I saw once again Nick Wright tweeting out. He's like, "Hey, go get that Chiefs money line. Go bet on the Chiefs money line. You get good odds here." Because that's kind of like the thing, right? The Chiefs are down 10. Who cares? Who cares? They're down 11, and they came back, right? They came back, and there was a key. I think their first touchdown was on 4th down, right? So that's another. There was points in the game. This is when Booger tweeted this thing out, right? The Bengals give up a field goal. I think when it was 14-3, right? They could have gone up 17-3. I might not have the exact time right, but there was a point where they gave up the field goal, and then you mentioned earlier, hours ago on the show, jet sweep that Carlos Dunlap just destroys on 4th and 1. The Chiefs, though, their first touchdown was on 4th down, and they could have just kicked the field goal to go 14-6, but they knew in these games you need touchdowns, right? You need touchdowns in these games, and they get a wide open touchdown on 4th and 2 to Jerick McKinnon for 2-yard touchdown or 4th and goal. So every time teams don't just take the points, we do hear about it a lot. Oh, you had 3 points. And I'm sure Bengals fans at one point were like, hey, we could have used those 3 points instead of the 4th and 1. But that if you remain aggressive throughout the time, I mean, that was almost the reason why the Chiefs won, because they didn't settle for a field goal, because they did go for it. But the Chiefs get up 24-17 heading into the fourth quarter. I mean, that's Chiefs territory, man. Like, they should be winning that. You think about trying to slow down that Chiefs offense the entire time. Mahomes had that awesome Jordan reach over the goal line to go up 7. And then it's just like, all right, the Chiefs should win this. This is what's so impressive about the Bengals, is they never feel like this incompetent team that can't compete with the best.
Yeah.
And they were able to make this comeback.
And specifically against the Chiefs, like the Bengals in all of those games against Kansas City have had plays where you think they try something, it doesn't come off, and you're like, oh, that's it. That's the play. You can't miss those plays and still beat Kansas City. Like, that's the way this works. And in every game, Cincinnati have left some of those on the table and still managed to come back and get the win against Kansas City. I remember when they butchered, was it late in the first half or late in the game? Like, they butchered, it was another short yardage, like down by the goal line. They screwed it up before halftime the last time they played them. And you're like, oh, that's it. You can't leave that kind of points on the table and still beat the Chiefs. So they had the same thing, right? They're down, or they're up rather, 14-10, driving before halftime here.
This is the one I was talking about. It was 14-10 at the time.
Yeah. So they're inside Kansas City's 5-yard line, 3rd and 1, and they make a mess of the first one, and then they run that sweep the jet sweep thing, and Dunlap just seals it immediately. And again, everybody in the world except Boog is like, why would you not just sneak right up the middle? Easy first down, set you up first and goal with whatever it is.
By the way,
40-something seconds left.
I think the play call was fine. Burrow checked to it because teams are taking away the QB sneak.
But they're only taking it away. Like, they're taking away the traditional sneak, which is not the thing that's unstoppable now. The thing that's unstoppable is the Eagles' double cheek press, or whatever it is Chris called it.
Double cheek push.
Use that. Use the thing that is unstoppable right now until somebody shows you that they have figured out how to stop it, because they haven't. So stop. Like, okay, yes, they're stacked in the A gaps. So don't just try and squeeze Joe Burrow through an A gap by himself. Stack two people behind him and drive him over that line. Like, that's how you get 4th and short and 3rd and short these days. It is unstoppable until somebody shows a way of stopping it. I hate any kind of play call now where you try and run laterally on something in inches, because you're just immediately adding an element of risk that doesn't need to be there. And if you don't want to expose Joe Burrow to that, do what every other team does, like the Chiefs.
I think it's fine. I think you just read the defense. If they're that stacked in the A gap, you can run an outside zone or a jet sweep play just fine.
But then all that has to happen is for Carlos Dunlap to say, well, if they're dealing with the A gaps, this is coming wider, so I'm going to make a play here. Because you're not bothering to block that properly because you're stacked up in a...
And you run the reverse off of it.
The reverse. Yes. You want to run a reverse.
Jet sweep reverse.
On a 4th and short.
Yeah. And then when they stop that, the reverse becomes a...
triple reverse. Yeah. Like a Philly.
He's going to throw it. Philly.
Yeah.
Philly special.
Anyway, so they make a mess of this. They lose the ball. Kansas City gets it over, and you don't get another score on the board before halftime. And those are the plays that most teams, when they can't get them against the Chiefs, it's going to come back to bite you, because Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and eventually they'll get those points. But what's really impressive about the Bengals is they have left those on the table against Kansas City. I think in every single game they've beaten them and still find a way to come back and get it done.
Yeah. The Bengals are able to counterpunch the Chiefs like other teams don't seem capable of. You can make mistakes and still come back. I mean, the end of the game was the epitome of that, right? It's second down, Joe Burrow takes the sack, and then just throws a dime on third down. Doesn't matter, right? They're able to counterpunch and just overcome their own mistakes. Tyler Boyd, they had a beautiful, I think it was third down, beautiful pick play. It's a pick.
Straight drop touchdown.
Tyler Boyd's wide open and drops it with what should have been an easy touchdown. Mm-hmm. They were able to overcome that as well. Now, you have to do it in spectacular fashion. You have to force a fumble on Travis Kelce in the fourth quarter to make that happen and recover it. So it took some special plays, but they were able to overcome some of the mistakes that they made, which is, I think, again, is most impressive about the Bengals and Zach Taylor's Bengals and how they've stepped up in some of these big games.
Yeah, I thought Cincinnati's pass rush was doing a really good job of not just getting pressure on Mahomes, but
retrace, man.
But yeah, like keeping their feet, keeping control of what they're doing, and not letting Mahomes do what he usually does, which is just like sidestep the rush and then run around in like a giant parabola and deliver a pass somewhere to Travis Kelce. Like, they were doing a really good job of keeping their feet, keeping under control, like breaking down and being able to chase him and grab hold of him just enough to stop him making some crazy play happening in the back end.
Yeah, their ability to retrace their steps, I think. And I think you described it well, but just also the teams that do the best against Patrick Mahomes, it isn't necessarily winning your one-on-ones. It is making sure that you're limiting his pocket mobility, right? Because he's going to win from the pocket. He's going to make his plays and the whole thing. They're going to scheme up X amount of plays during the game and the whole thing. But that was the 3rd and 2 where the Chiefs had in their comeback attempt, right? This is the big plays that mattered. On 3rd and 2, the Chiefs get the sack where Mahomes is like, all right, he's scrambling around, he's making a play, and they just tripped him up to bring him down for the sack, right? To make it 4th and 5 or whatever it was, which made it, a 55-yard field goal, which would have tied the game. Butker misses it, and that ends up becoming, that's the difference in the game, basically, for the Chiefs.
The Tyler Boyd drop that you mentioned earlier, like, that's another one of those mistakes that Cincinnati left out. That was a 4-point mistake. Like
Yes.
they had to settle for a field goal. That's a 4-point screw up on that play. Like the thing before halftime. Like these are points that Cincinnati is leaving on the table and still finding a way to offset and beat Kansas City. Like that's incredibly impressive. And I think right now there might not be a team in the NFL that has a more bulletproof confidence against Kansas City than the Bengals. Like there's no team out there that knows they can do what Cincinnati has done to Kansas City, which is find themselves behind late in the game, having left 7 to 10 points out on the field somewhere through their own mistakes, and know that it doesn't matter, they can win anyway.
That last play too is Joseph Asai ends up getting the sack. We talked about coming into the game how good the 3-man rush was, and they mentioned it on the broadcast as well. In the AFC Championship, how the Bengals, this was their second half adjustment. They go to the 3-man rush and they make Mahomes not have anywhere to go and what have you. But it's also, and the broadcast reiterated this, it's not as simple as, like football's not as simple as just rush 3 every time, right? Just do the same thing. But I also think the Bengals did a good job when the game was on the line going to the thing that they trusted, which was, so this is 3rd and 3, 4 minutes left in the game, biggest play of the game. If you could stop the Chiefs here, maybe you're going to force the field goal. And this is what happened, right? And the Bengals go to their 3-man rush, and that's when Asai, falls back and trips up Mahomes for the sack. But they did a good job of disguising it and getting into it. They only did it 5 or 6 times in the game, but they waited for key spots to go to the thing that they trusted from the AFC Championship that worked last year.
And that's the thing. On plays where they rushed 3 players, the Chiefs Mahomes went 1 for 4 for 6 yards. And when you factor in the sack, it's basically 0 net yards when they rushed the 3 guys. Like that wasn't a game plan, 3 rushers all game. But when they did it, the Chiefs didn't make plays off the back of it.
Yeah, so to me, just another impressive defensive performance by the Bengals. I think the Chiefs were fine offensively, but again, it's like there were limited possessions in the fourth quarter and in various things like that, and the Bengals just made a few more plays on their defensive side.
Huge statement game for Cincinnati generally. I mean, they're now 1 game back from that number 1 seed in the AFC. They're tied essentially for first place in the division with the Ravens. Joe Burrow catapults himself into the MVP conversation, and all of a sudden,
you love that.
Well, yeah, and all of a sudden, when you look at Cincinnati's run-in, we talked about this before. We're not going to have a better handle on any team in the NFL heading into the playoffs when Kansas City, Cleveland, at Tampa Bay, at New England, Buffalo, Baltimore, like that's their run-in. So if they have any kind of success, in that split of games, we're going to be talking about one of the best teams in the NFL. Like they're a better team now than they were this time a year ago when they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's the other underrated part here. The offensive line, very good for the Bengals. Samaje Perine filling in for Joe Mixon once again. He goes over 100 yards and 5 yards per carry. Run blocking, pass blocking. Joe Burrow only got sacked 1 time. He ended up, just saving a few plays and scrambling and doing just enough there as well. But the O-line much better this year than they were last year as well. That's a big part of it. I mean, the only knock on the Bengals really is they played down to the Browns over the last couple of years. Not that the Browns are terrible, but they've played their worst games against the Browns or last year's Jets or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's their week-to-week consistency. They're the big game Bengals, man. Big game Burrow. That's what it is. So, Bengals move to 8-4. Chiefs fall to 9-3. And let's just touch on Sunday Night Football.
Lose control of their own destiny for the number 1 seed now, Kansas City.
Correct. So the Bills are also 9-3. They're both tied record-wise. Bills have the tiebreaker. Chiefs, fascinating season, right? Their 2 losses come to arguably the 2 other best teams in the AFC, the Bills and the Bengals, and also the Colts.
Yeah.
Frank Reich's Colts.
Yeah.
Not
true.
Jeff Saturday's Colts.
Not even Coach Saturday.
Coach Saturday's Colts were hanging tough with the Dallas Cowboys, 21-19 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But, as Jason Garrett said, Cowboys by 40. He was almost right. A 33-point fourth quarter by the Cowboys.
It's insane. Like this game, that's what I was wondering. Like how late into it was this game still really close? And yeah, right. It got into the fourth quarter as 21-19 and the Colts hanging tough and making it a grind for Dallas and blah, blah, blah. And then the Colts just went turnover crazy, and Dallas just started racking up points. And it got out of control in a hurry.
I mean, the Colts are down 21-13, and then they go on a 15-play, 90-yard drive, 8 minutes to get within 2, to get to 21-19. They didn't get the 2-point conversion to tie it. But Matt Ryan, the best offense the Colts created was throwing it up to Alec Pierce. He had a 15-yard touchdown there. So it's 21-19, as we said, going into the into the fourth quarter, and then it all fell apart.
5 turnover-worthy plays from Ryan. That doesn't even. There's fumbles in there as well. The
Matt Ryan fumbled. There were interceptions.
Yeah.
And Dak Prescott didn't even play all that well. He was turning it over and putting the ball in harm's way as well. This was one of those. I mean, the Cowboys scored 54 points, not necessarily because of the offense, but because of the defense. I mean,
because of turnovers. I mean,
because of the turnovers, right?
All of a sudden, Ryan felt like he needed to press and chase that game. Now that it was now that it was a greater than 2-point deficit, and just terrible plays ensued.
The Cowboys kept turning it over and giving their offense the ball in Colts territory.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan at one point, he gets sacked with about 4 minutes left by like 3 guys. Fumbles. Might have been. He looked like he should have just retired on the spot, maybe.
I bet he felt like it.
There was still some plays. I know we've given Coach Saturday, it's Jeff, Saturday some credit for the offensive line. Chris was in the middle of complimenting them, and they blew a cover protection where they just, A-gap blitzes have just killed the Colts all season, no matter who the coaches were. I think it was Donovan Wilson comes through free and just crushes Matt Ryan. I mean, any sort of blitzing, pressure just was issues.
The funny thing is,
created issues.
Heading into the game, it was like this is one of those one-on-one matchups that's going to determine a game. Bernard Ryman, the third-round rookie, going up against Micah Parsons, arguably the best pass rusher in the game. Ryman actually was okay. It's just that everybody else was annihilated. Like the other 4 starters got their ass kicked, and Ryman did okay, and it doesn't matter when 4 other guys are getting killed. So, yeah, the Colts' offensive line, which had been resurgent under Coach Saturday, fell apart in the face of the onslaught from the best pass rush in the NFL. The Cowboys defense, the Cowboys pass rush just annihilated them completely. And then again, for the second time this season, Dallas completely has a game wrapped up, and Micah Parsons is still out there rushing the passer. We saw, maybe it was mic'd up clips from the last one, where it was against Minnesota, right, where they just destroyed them, and he's still in there late in the fourth quarter. He doesn't want to come out of the game, but that's then when a coach needs to step in and say, Micah, sit the hell down. We need you for the Super Bowl. If you get injured in some stupid late fourth quarter play for no reason, just because you're trying to, get a sack or chase Nick Bosa's numbers or whatever, this is no good. Sit down. You can't play anymore. This game is wrapped, and you're arguably our most important player. You need to be off the field.
Yes, they needed to get him off the field. Rookie 5th rounder Deron Bland had 2 interceptions. The Colts were pretty good for 3 quarters, hanging around for 3 quarters, and then Dallas kept forcing turnovers. Colts kept giving them the ball, depending on your perspective, and that was it.
A little from column A, a little from column B, I think.
54-19.
Really a good game from Stephon Gilmore, who just owned Michael Gallup on his interception. It's one of those plays where if you're going to take that inside release, knowing that you have to break outside in your route, you really need to make sure that break, you physically dominate the contact with the DB, because you're essentially giving him position on the route, and you need to then clear him in order to make that play. And Gallup just ran into him and then just fell over. It was he just physically owned. Gilmore just went, no, I'm bigger and stronger than you are. You're not coming past me on this break, and actually, I'm going to go take the ball.
Yeah.
That's not great from a Gallup perspective.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, for a team that scored 54 points, I don't know if Dallas's offense was actually that good overall.
I mean, Gallup made that mess. One of the touchdowns was CeeDee Lamb
CeeDee Lamb was fantastic. So all I'm saying, Dak had a lot of luck yesterday. That's all I'll say, right? CeeDee Lamb has a normal shallow cross that he should be tackled, where he stays on his feet and gives him a touchdown, right? I mean, there was the stat line is going to be favorable to Dak, given a couple of his passes. Mm-hmm. And CeeDee Lamb, though, he is special, man. He does look so good. The only issues him and Dak have had over the recent weeks is miscommunications on routes and various things like that. But CeeDee Lamb with the ball in his hands, we're starting to see like the full package of CD working after the catch and his route running and what he can do down the field. So yeah, Osa Odighizuwa with a big game rushing the passer, along with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Just so many pass rushers to deal with the Cowboys this year.
Yes. Why were Dallas rotating Jason Peters in at left tackle?
Just keep him fresh.
Keep him fresh, Jason Peters. That didn't make a ton of sense to me. I understand Tyler Smith hasn't had the best couple of weeks recently, the rookie left tackle. But one, he's probably still your best left tackle. Two, he's going to be. I mean,
were they mixing him in or moving him at tight end?
No, if they did, it was a lot. He came in and he had like 11 pass blocking snaps. Like, he played quite a lot. It seemed to be at left tackle. What does the position pivot say? That's all left tackle plays. 19 of them. That's more than 6 offensive line stuff.
Thing sorted. Anyway, I don't know, man.
But anyway, my other point being, when Tyron Smith is coming back, they're probably going to kick Tyler Smith back into left guard. We were supposed to be playing the season. I mean, do you really want to be messing around with him now? Like, just leave him do his thing. And then when you get Tyron Smith back, kick him into guard. Like, stop. What's the Jason Peters thing for?
I don't know. Tyron Smith's supposed to have his window opened up to practice today, per Jerry Jones.
Then he gets like 4 weeks where they get to decide whether he's being activated or not.
He looked pretty jacked on the sideline in his sweatshirt or whatever.
Doesn't he always?
Yes.
I forgot, because they show him on the sideline, then they get the little caption underneath it. It's Tyron Smith, and then like whatever was wrong with him, and they just listed as hamstring. But remember, like, he had a hamstring, his entire hamstring like tore off the bone or something, right? That was his thing. He was it wasn't just a hamstring injury. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was bad. So yeah, Dallas does have this ability to just like look dominant, don't they?
Yeah,
they've done this at times throughout the last couple of years, but the turnover-worthy plays were also something last year down the stretch that were an issue for Dak Prescott. Those were around again in this game. Not a negative when you win by 30, but just something to keep an eye on when you play the non-Colts. In other games. When you play the Eagles. Are they next week? When do they play the Eagles? I don't think it's next week.
I don't know. I haven't looked.
I'm done. You done?
You're just out.
Oh, no. They've got the Texans next week. Eagles on Christmas
Excellent.
Eve. Eagles on Christmas Eve, and then a quick turnaround going to Tennessee for a Thursday night game. Cowboys, Texans next week. The Texans, that's right. They got the Cowboys and the Chiefs the next couple of weeks. As if it hasn't been bad enough for the Texans.
I feel like we want one game where Kyle Allen just manages to accidentally have like 5 big-time throws and no turnover-worthy plays.
They lose like 40-34 or something.
Yeah, but at least it's interesting and fun,
We're looking for fun. All right, well, this was fun. Did we cover every game? I feel like we got everything.
I hope so.
Did we cover enough? 2.5 hours?
In 2.5 hours.
I think we did. All right, great show. Week 13's in the books. Enjoy Saints versus the Bucks tonight on Monday Night Football. Of course, we'll be back again on Wednesday with our midweek show. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Hit that thumbs up on the way out. Download the new PFF app. Go check it out right now. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you Wednesday.